Hey welders, ready to upgrade your gear and save some serious dough in the process? The Miller Build with Blue savings and rebate program has you covered. Find amazing deals and cashback rebates on a wide range of Miller products, from welders to plasma cutters and everything in between, all backed by our 3-year warranty. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Take advantage of the Miller Build with Blue program now. Visit us online or stop by your nearest Miller distributor today to start saving.
So tonight on the Strange Motion Way podcast, we got another great guest. As Carrie says, they're all great guests. I'm your host, Tim Strange, and no Carrie tonight. She is in the background doing some stuff she turned on because I'm just Ron Burgundy up here. I don't know how to hardly even turn a computer on. And she's in the background in case I need something, working on her Cars and Cones Autocross Charity Week, and she's getting ready to go to the West Coast Power Tour. So since the start of our Strange Motion Way podcast, we've been doing a lot of historic people in the industry, legends, and people that have helped build what we have today, and trying to make sure their stories are recorded and saved. Tonight, we probably have the youngest builder that we have had on the podcast.
At least distinguished.
Not really. That's why you're on here. So I got notice to him. I'm not a big, we can talk about this Battle of the Builders guy, but I did take notice of you when you were in the Young Guns section. I think you had a Datsun, right?
Yep.
And I still got more lead in here, but I apologize. Did you win the Young Guys that year?
Yeah, one Young Guns. The whole tilt. Yeah, top slot.
And then I actually met you face to face. I think the year at SEMA. You had the gold copper vet in the mother's booth outside.
Yep.
Our good friends, the Tucci boys, introduced us. He's like, hey, you got to come meet this Kyle guy. And I'm like, oh, I follow him. He's been doing a very detailed build on social media on his new car that he's getting ready to debut. So we wanted to record him. So this will go live before the SEMA show. He's also developed and put out on the market some great fabrication tools for other fabricators and builders to buy and use, something that he's found that was a need. So welcome one of the new breeds of what I say the badass builders, Kyle Kuhnhausen. Did I say your last name right?
You nailed it, man.
Okay. That's all the notes that I have, so we just wing it from here.
Beautiful. That's my style.
So you said you've listened to a few of these, so you kind of know the drill. We don't just jump into the meat of what you're doing now. We like to go back, see how you got your start, family, uncle, whatever. So when did you think that you realized that you were going to be a amazing fabricator or a hot rod person?
I mean, it sounds weird because usually I don't think people find until later, down the road what they know they want to do. But I mean, probably since I was 8, 9, 10 years old, I knew I was going to build, race cars, hot rods, something mechanical. And that all stems from starting with BMX bikes and just working up the ranks, BMX bikes, dirt bikes.
Oh, wait.
I know you guys are big BMX
We did not
guys.
know you were an ex-BMXer. So here we need to talk about that. So of course, tell everybody how old you are right now.
33.
Okay. So you were born, as our BMX kids that we sponsor, you were born in the 1900s. It's sad to say,
Yes.
but we know people and friends that were not born in the 1900s. They were, they're 20 years old or whatever. How old were you when you did BMX? Did you do some racing or just ride around the town?
I did a lot of riding around the town, and I did a little bit of racing. It was a little tougher because when I was in the racing era, we had a local track, and my next door neighbors actually were the ones that kind of got me into that, and they both raced nationally. I don't know what ranks they were really at, but as far as I was concerned, they were the best in the world because they were Steve Massengale and Justin Chapman.
It kind of sounds familiar, but yeah.
It would have been quite a while ago, but anyways, they were.
I've been around BMX for 40 years, so yeah, we know a lot of people that's come and went. My real question then, what was the bike you rode?
Oh, Specialized Fat Boy. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I always liked the monocoque chassis. For whatever reason, I always thought that they were just cooler, and they kind of looked like the Haro had that one monocoque race frame, and that's what the neighbor had, and I was like, shit, that's it. That's the coolest.
You rode Specialized. A couple weeks ago, I get to do a lot of MC stuff around the country. the coolest event, I get hired to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma and do the red carpet interviews for the BMX Hall of Fame. So there was like 41 past Hall of Famers and then the new 2024 season. So I am kind of a collector, weird nerd, and they gave me the list to prep, right, for MC stuff to interview these people. And I seen TJ Lavin was coming because a couple of his buddies were getting. So I dug out a magazine and had him sign a cover of him riding for Specialized.
Yep. That was one of the big names, man. It's
and you know, he's a hot rod guy.
Oh, is he? That's cool.
Yeah. I met him at the SEMA. Of course, he's a Vegas boy. Late great Courtney Hallowell introduced us, and he's had C10s. He's got a slab side Lincoln, and he's a legit hot rod dude and a dog lover.
Nice.
He's a dog lover.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
So we'll move on from the BMX stuff.
I'd love to have done a lot more of it, but it was my dad ran a business then, so weekends and all the time it takes to get your there's a lot going on at that period of time. It wasn't kind of like it is now, but it was all for the better because I kind of found my real niche a little bit later with the hot rods. So
was your dad a car guy, a hot rodder, or fabricator?
Oh yeah. So he owned a mechanic and body shop since before I was born. And then also they were always, him and his business partner John were always NHRA drag racing, like all the time. Oh, cool. Yeah, so we did a lot of drag racing and like rolling down to Southern California, and I spent a lot of time in the back seat of a extended cab dually OBS. So the most cramped rear seat on earth.
Yeah. So what was Dad racing back then?
He had a Chevelle before I was well, when I was too young to remember. He had a 70 Chevelle, and then he had a 55 Bel Air during my years that I actually remember, and it ran like low tens or something. So it was pretty nasty for a Bel Air in that era. I mean, nowadays they, like Alex Taylor's runs in the sixes. It's like, Jesus,
all week on drag week.
That's not how drag racing was back in that period. It was pretty nasty to have a big boat like that doing like low tens back then. And then they both graduated to a 69 door car, but it could run in the high sevens.
Oh, wow.
And so we were doing a mechanical throttle stop and running the Good Guys series for a while, 860s, just, trying to run on the number and whatnot. So I got half my licensing passes done in that. And then I hate driving other people's stuff. Like it does nothing for me. All I do is think of, if I pile this up, I cannot replace it. That's it. I'm wired like that. I can't just go, oh, this is an awesome opportunity. So I had a lot of fun, but at the same time, it's just like, no, I just like building them.
So how old were you then when you were drag racing a little bit? Still in high school?
Yeah, in high school. So in high school, they were drag racing and I was drag racing. My dad had a 72 Cheyenne long bed, him and his business partner, that we put a 427 big block in. And I would run that while they were running their car. And just go set a number. I think it ran like somewhere in the 13s. I could set it, and one time I won one, and I ran it all day. We were fighting vapor lock. It was like in Spokane, Washington, in the middle of summer, so it's like probably 120 or more on the track surface, just hot as heck. And we were having fuel lockup issues, just vapor lock, and so I was kind of having to learn how to kind of like shooting from a long distance, learning how to arch it. So it should run this, but it's gonna run this, and kind of dialing it in that way. And I just remember on the last pass, I hit it right on the nut, to win the thing. And it was pretty cool. And I think my dad red lit. So he was out immediately. So I kicked his ass.
That's awesome. So a lot of people, I do drag race announcing some too. I wish I got to do more. Yeah. And bracket racing doesn't play well on TV.
No.
Nitro cars, the loud, the fast, the heads up. But if you're into drag racing, I get real nerded out, especially when I'm announcing and I get to see all the numbers, the reaction times, the 60, 300, all that marks. And bracket racing, man, I was trying to teach another announcer that he's just mostly an autocross guy, and we were at a Hemmings event, and he goes, "What are you talking about?" Because I was, reaction time and this, that. And I go, "Well, the computer over here tells us that stuff and a little bit of info about the car." And he had no idea. He goes, "Well, why'd that guy hit the brakes on the other end? He was ahead." He goes, because he may have been too fast and he would have broke out. And if you say
Yeah.
you're going to run a 13.0 and you run a 12.5, you're done. You went too fast. And that just blew his mind. Yeah, he couldn't comprehend that it wasn't always the fast car to win. So yeah, we have here is
Okay.
is a headless
Yeah.
cat.
There you go.
So Axel has made himself aware here tonight, like what's going on.
Yeah.
So some people he loves their voices, and some people he just goes away. So
Yeah.
So obviously, then you probably worked at your dad's business. Was your first job?
That's so, yeah, I started there when I was 12, and I never had another day of spring, summer, winter vacation since then, ever. I like to work because early on, he taught me that you could work and make money and buy car parts. And so that just became a revolving cycle, forever. It's never really stopped. So he's a workaholic, and I kind of picked up the addiction there from him. And it's just weird to sit around.
Yeah,
I'd rather be working. I'll go dig a hole. It doesn't matter. I just got to be doing something productive. So.
Yeah, that's how I was raised on a farm, and my dad was a hot rod guy. So when you were 12, did your dad pay you?
I think, well, he paid me in car part. I think it was still a little bit under the table at that point. And so I would work all summer, and then I could pick out, like, do I want coilovers for my Honda Prelude, or do I want some wheels and tires? And so I think he got the better end of that deal, probably, because I was a pretty hard little worker at 12. But
Yeah, I remember we had, of course, I worked on the farm. Well, I'm on a Zoom call and it's just my face, but every once in a while the cat is rubbing here, so a tail will go in front of my face, and see that? Come on, cat, get out of here. So yeah, so then my dad worked for another farmer, and I'd help them, and they'd pay me a little bit. But around the farm that we had, my dad never paid me. We had like a Christmas tree farm, like a lot of work, even up until until I moved out. Well, I think they closed the Christmas tree farm in my early 20s, but I was working at a body shop and going to body school and working it till like 2 o'clock in the morning on the Christmas tree farm, and he never paid me. And I go, Dad, are you ever going to pay me? He goes, I'll put a roof over your head and feed you. So now, as my dad's a little older,
I was spoiled then.
Yeah, I mean, still, he'd help me get some parts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But now he's like, well, I should move to Tennessee and work for you. And he goes, what's it pay? I go, I'll feed you and put a roof over your head. He doesn't think it's quite the good a deal now.
It's funny because I work that deal on my old man now. He's retired, and he works for me kind of pro bono.
So do you buy parts every once in a while for something that
I just scored him a set of BF Goodrich tires for his K20. So, every now and then there's a little trade-off, but I'm just getting him back for all those years.
You got to. Yeah. So you were drag racing that truck. Was that what was your first car you drove go to school when you were 16? Did you drive that big block truck?
I drove that one. I don't think we got that till I was maybe 16 or 17. But when I was 12, when I started working, him and my mom got me a totaled 92 Honda Prelude. You got to remember the era that I grew up in. Mm-hmm. Fast and the Furious was released when I was 12, the first one.
Yeah.
And so that's what I eventually came over, and got my priorities straight and started liking American muscle cars. But
well, to me, okay, so I have I'm a custom guy, and then a street rod guy, and then a muscle car guy. And, trucks are up there high too, but I'm totally okay with tuner cars. To me, in my numbers, they're ahead of rat rods.
Yo,
traditional
I do agree with you. Yeah.
And I knew a lot of younger guys around where we would go to cruising and stuff that, man, they were tuner kids, and one guy did our website for a while because they were tech guys, and people make fun of that movie. I mean, of course, it's not what the first few was. There was real car stuff in that stuff, even though they didn't like tuner stuff. But if you pay attention, you're a perfect one, probably the only one we've had on there. What that first movie did, how many kids, and I'm older. I mean, American Graffiti come out in the 70s, but I seen that as a young kid. And I seen Hollywood Nights, and then then there's people that seen Gone in 60 Seconds. But that first Fast and Furious probably did more for the aftermarket, I'm not going to say hot rod, but the car world than any Hollywood movie has done in the last, what was that, 2001, 2002. So the last 22 years, Hollywood they usually screw up car movies. And that was cheesy a little bit, but I'll still watch it whenever it comes on. I mean, it's still kind of cool, and the street racing, and it really, Hollywood really screws up stuff anymore. And I wish they'd do some kind of a car movie, because then we need an infusion of new young blood into this that we're not really finding out how to do that yet.
Yeah, and I agree with you tenfold that it did the most. I mean, it cooks there's so many people. It's probably what's going to drive our industry forward after all these old guys that want, you know, Ford Roadsters and stuff built all pass away.
Hmm.
Is this new wave of young kids coming in that were inspired by that, and that's probably what they're going to want is, you know, the Supras and the,
Yeah.
you know, all
Yeah.
that cool stuff. And totally, don't get me wrong, I'm definitely a fan of import cars, and I love a lot about them. The problem with them is that they're almost too good because there's not, you know, the unibodies and stuff are so good. There's just not a whole, you know, I want to build chassis and
Yeah.
do cool stuff. You know, it's almost like two steps backwards to do it on any of that stuff because with the bolt-ons, they're probably still a little bit ahead of even what you can take a muscle car to these days. But
Yeah, but it also
it's just
helps
good
that
stuff.
it's think about, I mean, my first car that I had a 55 Chevy, but the first car I like built and won awards with right out of high school was a 64 Chevelle.
Hmm.
There wasn't any tubular A-arms back then that you could buy or nothing like that. So we, cut the springs. I think you eventually could buy lower drop spindles, and, then I put a 9-inch Ford underneath of it and all that. And they were expensive. I mean, like, think about the first time that a kid like my age back then in the 80s or 90s, I'm going to build a Model A. Well, you got to do something to the chassis if you're going to put a small block in it, because it's just not going to hold up. Well,
Yeah.
if you get a tuner car, it's your money ahead, like you said. The chassis, the suspension, the braking, everything works good from the factory. You can slowly upgrade it. And I
Yeah.
remember we did a Chevy Cavalier for GM the first time they gave us one of them dollar cars. And
Hmm.
with BF Goodrich, we toured it, took it to a bunch of places and indoor shows. And we went to our first Nopi show in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there, and I still remember it was one of them dark, like root beer looking, reddish maroon, uh, what was it, Eagle Talon, the all-wheel drive cars. And I'm
Yeah.
looking at this. It looks like this guy's going to the grocery store. And that thing like lurched and ran like, in my mind, it was probably a 9 second or something like that. It might have been 11, but to me, it was just like, it just blew my mind. It was like, well, I'd pull up to that guy at a stoplight and bet him to race to the next stoplight, and he'd take my lunch money. It's like, it woke me up in a hurry when we went to that
Badass.
drag race show. Yeah.
Yeah, it's our pain when I was 12 and 13 and 14 working in the shop, you know, I'd wash cars and clean the shop until they could get me on cars later in life. And so I'd sweep the shit out of that paint shop floor. And noon comes around and the painter's like, this kid's been slaving in here for 3 hours and my shop's beautiful. And the adult help, it doesn't do that because their dad's not going to go whoop them a little bit for slacking around.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to go to lunch? And he had a turbo Talon all-wheel drive, and zip up to Taco Bell. And I just remember, it's one of my formidable memories as a kid is when he's leaving Taco Bell and I'm in the back seat, and one of the other helpers and he frickin' stepped on that thing, and I'd never been in a fast import car, and I swear he was doing 100 like that, in a 40. It just, there's like a mile, up the street to get food. And I was just like, oh my God, this is what I want, Never did end up, after the Prelude, I got a Toyota pickup because that was a lot more practical, four-wheel drive. That's somewhat more practical around here. And then I eventually bought a
So wait,
03.
how far did you take the Prelude? Was it just stock, or did you lower it in graphics?
Oh no, I did. I worked hard.
windshield wipers,
Remember, it was work for parts. I did. It was a totaled car when I got it, and he had one of his guys, fix the structure.
Mhm.
And then we did all the body work, paint work, helping him and going through the process and learning how to, as much hands-on as I could do. I did a lot of remedial sanding, and
Mhm.
I Swissed the hood. I remember I drilled out all the under support like an old hot rod, and I only dimpled the surface 8 or 10 times, as a kid, not knowing how big of a deal that is. And no, it was fully painted, suspension, brakes, tire. I never got to touch the engine. I always wanted to turbo it, and do all that. And he would never let me do any of that. So I had the coolest looking factory engine 92 Prelude there. I built my first roll cage on a Harbor Freight pump bender. I learned how to pack the tubes with sand, cap the ends, so you didn't kink it too bad, count the bends, lay it out on the floor, built a full 6-point little cage in that thing. And I did quite a bit with it. And then I ended up selling it for a street bike in college.
So the real question is, what did you look like? Because if you listen to the Roadster Shop podcast, Josh was a tuner kid, and they always give him a hard time about his frosted tips.
Exactly what you'd imagine. I had, I had a full bleach blonde, and then I had frosted tips,
Okay.
and then I eventually worked out of that by the time I hit high school. But
yeah,
probably the same exact era. I was just a little bit younger.
Yeah. So then, okay, you started to go, but I wanted to go back and get more of the Prelude story. After the Prelude, you got the street bike. Did you drag race the Prelude any, or the street bike any?
No, the street bike was just for I just something cool about revving something to 15,000 and riding it and stuff. And it was a good thing I got out of those as quick as I got into them. But no, I definitely drag raced the Prelude a couple times up at our local track, and had some fun with it. I mean, it was not fast. It was front wheel drive, stock H23, 2.3 liter non VTEC Prelude. So, but it sure felt fast. I mean, could blow the shitty Yokohama tires off it like it's nobody's business. So it's the cool front wheel drive thing was you could set, you pull your e-brake and it's like line locks.
Yeah. And then you said you got a Toyota truck for it was more practical to haul parts.
That was it's that and I built all the bumpers and swing out tailgate racks and rock sliders and all the stuff. And that I ended up doing all the body work and paint on that and made it way too nice. And eventually I sold it all. I financed because I needed to build some credit to buy a house out of college. I had no credit. So I bought a 03 Z06 Corvette, which I could have went and bought for cash, but I needed to loan something so I could go buy a house. And so I ended up keeping that till just recently. I sold that about a year ago so I could buy our forever home that we graduated up to. So now I have no real cool car. Well, I do have cool cars, but I'm a half owner and I'm with my dad.
So where'd you go to college at?
I went to Oregon State. I started mechanical engineering and then quickly decided that sitting in front of a computer my whole life was not exactly what I wanted to do. So I went to business, got a degree in business, started a business, and now I'm coming full circle and wish I would have paid a lot more attention in those sitting in front of a computer classes because I'd spend a lot of time on SolidWorks.
Yeah. The younger guys like you, they learn that right from the start, and us old people like now, we struggle learning that stuff. And I still don't know how to do it. I got good buddies that do it. Like when I lived in Illinois, I had a buddy that was a machinist and he didn't paint. So whenever he needed his little stuff painted or his pulling tractors that he built with his boy, we just traded out work. And I don't even have a mill or lathe in my shop now. I always have to find somebody to do it. I need a little, at least a desktop one or a bench top one to do a bushing or something.
Yeah, I run the wheels off my little Grizzly piece of crap mini mill and lathe.
So okay, so when did you start your own shop? How old were you then?
I was, it was so unofficially it's 2013, and I did the full like LLC articles and corporation thing, and I believe it officially started January 1st, 2014. Graduated college in 2013. I went to work for my dad full time doing as a body tech, and just trying to figure out what the heck I wanted to do. I got this business degree, but I don't have any money. I don't have a house. What am I supposed to do? These years are making
me feel really old. That like most of the guys we're talking to, like Brian Brennan, the last 2 weeks episodes, he's like, oh yeah, I was at the Chopper magazine before we started Street Rodder in 1972. It's like we were talking to these old and Daryl Starbird and Gene Winfield and stuff, and you graduated college 13 years or 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow. Look at me doing math. So right out of college, you worked for just a little bit for your dad.
Well, when I started the business, I was moonlighting for the first Ooh, I finally went full tilt in 2019, September 2019. I remember it because I never planned on actually doing it because by then me and Mark, the guy, so there's at my dad's shop, there's only two body techs, me and Mark, and we worked as a team on commission, and we both like working and like making money. And so we were just kicking ass. Like we turned a lot of hours out the door and fixed a lot of cars.
A good body tech with a proper office estimator. You work hard. I would be at the body shop the last one I worked at. It's been 30 years ago, and I would never hardly be there more than 35 hours because usually waiting on the paint booth or something. And I would turn easy 65 to 70 hours a week being there.
Oh yeah.
So it was almost doubling my time. But you gotta have a good office person writing good estimates, and everything's. There was still a couple times you barely had enough for lunch one week or something because it's just something fought you or the paint blew up on you or something. But a good body tech still can make good money doing that.
Oh, it was a way better financial career than what I'm doing now. But I hated it. I mean, it's remedial work and it sucks, and you're just fixing wrecked stock stuff, and everybody didn't want to get in a wreck and they want it now, and it's like you can't please anybody.
And then my problem was then they always thought they had something that they didn't have before. Like I remember there was
people were worse with their cars than their houses.
Yeah. There was a Cavalier, the people who lived on a gravel road. It was always muddy brown. Even when you seen it around town, it was never washed and cleaned. And they hit like a deer. And we put a hood, a front bumper, and it was the cheap, no air conditioning Cavalier, the black bumper, cloth, stick shift, crank up windows. And we put like a side front clip and blended into the doors. And they were nitpicking stuff on the other side of the car that they thought we did. No, because we washed it for them. And then they finally seen, there was a ding and a scratch over there. And they thought they had a Riddler car. They had a Cavalier that time you could buy for 13 grand off the lot, Yeah. And I just didn't. And my problem with collision was I didn't like the insurance adjusters coming in and cutting down the estimate from the shop manager. And I just didn't like that.
Yeah, it's like say that's a career. It's definitely not like I've got a perfect thing going right now with no employees, building hot rods. Basically whatever's best for me, is what I need to do. I'm self-employed and I don't have to help anybody else feed their family. So it's like, hey, if I need to take a week and go side my house or something, it's like, no problem at all. Go do that. And then we'll hit the cars hard next week.
And obviously, seeing what you've built, you have that artistic, creative side. So just fixing dents on a Cavalier or something doesn't fulfill your soul. People don't understand what we're talking about. They don't have that soul, that little spark in them that they need to create stuff.
Yeah, go grind out some 150 spot welds on a Volvo that's some undrillable, crazy alloy, and see how much fun you're having in the corner of the shop on the frame rack.
That's why I still hate drilling holes, because all the spot welds I had to drill in collision shops, and it was like I still hate drilling holes.
I guarantee I'm over 50,000 spot welds or something.
I love my Edwards ironworker with the different holes, so I can just punch holes. I hit the thing and I just put. Even then, I'll find myself in like something I can get off was like a 16 gauge sheet metal. I'll still take it over there and punch.
Oh yeah, I hate drill holes. I've got a 17 turret Rotex,
nice,
and an old, probably from a World War or something. Yeah. But I never drill holes. Like that poor thing, man. It's like someday that cast, thing's gonna snap. But
so if I remember, so you started kind of 13. You got your business stuff, doing a little side work, still working at Dad's until 2019. So what kind of projects were you working on the side before you went full time?
Well, what happened was, so I get out of college. I'm just doing body work, and this guy comes to my dad, somebody that was a client of his, and he's like, "Hey, I've got this Datsun 240Z. I want to do a light restoration." And my dad, at that point, his business is, after, I don't know, at that point, it's probably 20 something years. I think he owned it for like 30, maybe 35 plus years. Mm-hmm. But he just wasn't, he's starting to finally make real money from the business, and they franchised, and it was doing well, like way better than it ever did as a solo thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he just wasn't feeling it. He's like, I don't really have the time or drive to do this, but hey, my son just, got out of college and he's looking to do some work like this. How would you feel about if he did it? And so I went, I met with him, we had a lunch. My dad tagged along because I don't know this guy, and he's got to decide if he wants to spend, I think we are talking about like $30,000 or $50,000 at that point. So obviously not full build money, but like, hey, let's paint this thing, let's get it running. And so it's like, hey, okay, we're gonna do it. I form a actual business because I'm like, well, I got to do something here. And I start working on this Z car, and then as things progress, it's like we're talking about maybe rebuilding that motor, and that motor's all locked up, and I'm like, well, why don't we put an LS motor in it? More power.
This was the car you took to SEMA.
Oh, this is that car, yeah.
Oh wow! So this is your first big project right out of the box, basically.
That was my first build. Really surpassed expectations eventually.
So before that, before we get going crazy on here on forward, like when I worked at the body shops, I remember I did a Trans Am for a guy on the side, put quarter panels and stuff. I was always having some. My dad had a farm, so he gave me a quarter in the shop, and I painted like a 50-something Chevy Fastback and a Chrysler something 50. I can't even remember all the stuff that I did. And did you do any of that stuff, like side work like that? When you
did, yeah. So there was always a nickel and dime side project going. A roll cage on a Honda S2000, or I did a lot of like aluminum welding repair. Some guy run his outboard into something and it's got a big crack in the cast. Yeah, lots of stuff like that. And so I mean, at that point, I probably never even made a dime because whatever time it took me to do it wasn't worth whatever I charged.
Were you starting to buy equipment and seeing the writing on the wall?
Yeah. Well, I had that good job where I actually got paid in the body shop. And so that was kind of funding the start of the business. I needed to build a roll cage for that 240Z, and I wanted it to be a little bit better than my decade-old Harbor Freight pump bender could do for me. So I bought a Bailey RDB 175 and Bentec. And so there's with the full die, not a full die set, but with a 3,000-4,000 set of dies and a $8,000 machine and $1,000 program, like, hey, there's a hot 15 grand in equipment right there, right off the bat. But I always tell people that the value of that $100 Harbor Freight bender for a decade taught me stuff that I still carry with me and using, and how I lay things out with the sweep bender that pretty much does it for you. And so I kind of feel like I've never just gone and bought like a piece of equipment, like the newest, hottest thing. I still to this day, like I've never bought anything brand new that I'd never used before. It's like, I've got a lot of work. Like this bender built numerous Toyota bumpers, but freaking full scale boat towers, roll cages, like all this elaborate shit or stuff that, I was building with this literal $100 thing. And every time I needed to bend something, I had to fill it full of dry sand, tamp it on the ground, get it just packed, weld the caps and lay it out. And if it doesn't fit, sometimes you got to cut it down to just get it in to make sure you like it. And if it's still off a little bit, you got to go through the freaking process again, only it's all bent up this time. But so when I finally got that bender, I didn't want people going like, oh, he just got he's just got all this sweet equipment and that's how he does it. It's like, no, there's a backstory to it. Like I didn't grow up we never had like the nicest equipment or anything like that. So I kind of just, I like getting used stuff way better than buying fancy, shiny new stuff. Like old tools are way cooler.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a lot of old tools, but I also been very lucky that I've got some tool sponsorships from some major companies. So that has helped. And I mean, the last, 13 years after moving to Tennessee, the TV thing really opened some doors on getting me some hookups like that. Like I just had cheap sheet metal brake and I still have JD squared hand bender. I don't even have a hydraulic bender.
Oh, geez.
I do a lot of tube stuff, and I was like, oh, that's kind of a workout. And I have the Edwards Ironworker that you can plug in their power link things, and I have a roller so you can arc the tubes and stuff. But I've not got yet the bender part, and that's my next piece that I need for the hydraulic. Then I'll be like, oh, look how fast I can do this now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
hit the button.
yeah. So okay, so you're working on this Datsun, and that was a question. I didn't remember for sure what it had for a motor in it. So you talked him into LS in it.
LS in it, and then I was doing some pretty good work, and I had kind of decided early on, like, I want this to kind of be my calling card. So I'm not, I'm making good money at the body shop. I'm not really worried with making money building the car. I'm more doing it because, hey, this is a heck of an opportunity. Some guy's going to buy the parts. Like
So
I
can
can
we
build
say
it.
who this guy's? Because obviously this guy
Oh
gave
yeah,
you a huge
yeah.
start to.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I did a lot of cheap stuff before I got to do. Hey, let's build something cool. Hey, let's go to SEMA. So
Yeah. No, Dennis. He was an orthodontist in town here, and just I mean, just an awesome dude. Great family guy. Um, really good dad to his kids. Just a great role model. Great guy.
Mhm.
And he saw this hard work I was doing, and he stepped up and let me just kind of go carte blanche and do whatever I wanted. It's like, Dennis, what do you want? He's like, well, what do you want? Almost every time, and it's like, okay, let's do the coolest possible option. Yeah, you get the parts, and I'm not going to really, sweat you on labor or any of that.
I don't
So
know. So you were kind of. I'm going to say you were spoiled from the start to get.
I was.
This is my 30th year, and finding customers like that. I have a couple right now. Finally, that
Yeah.
I've had a couple of them for the last 5 years, but it took me over 20 years to find somebody. Most of the stuff I took to SEMA and stuff were my cars, and I mean, we had cars like that. I guess it probably took 15, 16 years to get a customer. Hey, let's really do something. Paul Hansen was probably my first customer. We built a copper lead sled Buick, and
Mhm.
I don't think the customers get enough credit in this industry. My
Oh,
partner guy, that drives him crazy. We go to a show, and I'm like, oh, that's a Roadster Shop car. That's a Rad Rides car. That's a whatever. And I pay attention, so I was like, oh, that Rad Rides car. Yeah, that's what's his. I'm blank on his first name. Beth Myers and her husband.
Yeah.
You know that, or this guy that Roadster Shop builds a lot of stuff from. You know that, but him as a kind of he's a car guy, but he's not in that business full time. And he's like, well, why isn't that the whoever car that owns it? And he goes, well, there's some like that, but it always drove him crazy because he's not a shop guy. That the shop got more credit for these big, well-known cars. And I was like, I never thought about that until he said it that way. And it's like a lot of people know something that Gene Winfield built, but I don't, you don't know who all the owners were, but
Yeah.
the Barris Hirahata Merc because it's the Hirahata Merc, but not all cars
Yeah.
like that are known. And so I always like to give props to the guys that are writing the checks to let us guys.
Oh, geez, yeah. I mean, without them, you don't have, you don't have the progression of what I've done since for that Z car, without having some clients who really like came through for me hugely. Like it's a real bummer though. And it's unfortunate because he's recently passed away, and it's just, I'd love to introduce the world to who he was, the guy that had us build that beige 64. Just one of the best guys you could ever meet in your whole. Every time you see him, you leave with a smile. It makes you feel great and appreciated, and always let you do, your artistic vision. Maybe he has a few things he'd like to see, like on that particular car, the wheels and the color were choices kind of chosen by him, but I got to pick the power plant and the chassis and all the cool fabrication details. And at the end of the day, it made a cooler product because it's stuff that, I wouldn't have picked, but it's also what makes the car stand out in the long run. But yeah, just talk about just awesome people in the industry that really made a huge impact on my life, especially, him and Dennis with the 240, and the guy that I just built the 66 for. But some of these guys also don't like, they're to be the spotlight because, they're just such good people. They don't want to rub it in. Like, these are pretty high dollar cars. Like,
Yeah. And probably like me, that's why I've always stayed small, never really had employees in 30 years. Because then if you have like 13 guys working in the shop, you got to take everything that the phone rings.
oh
And
yeah,
I always
you
wanted to
can't.
be a builder, not manage a crew. So this way it's like, if we're going to build a car, we usually hang out at a show or we go to dinner and we get back to them. If we get any
Yeah.
weird feeling, of course, I've learned this over 30 years. I've worked for a lot of assholes. I don't want to
Yeah.
work for an asshole anymore.
No.
And it's not saying that those people are bad people. Not everybody's personality works together. I know a guy that
Yeah.
he was working on a really high dollar car for this guy and he just wasn't getting along. He sent it to another buddy shop and they get along great. It's just a different
Yeah.
personality and there, you just got to find your shop, but we also got to find the right customers too.
Yeah, it's something I really believe in too, and it's kind of maybe why there's a lot of camaraderie in our industry is like, people that there's a lot of shops, especially nowadays more than ever with social media and just where things have gone. I mean, I could name 20 extremely high-end shops right now that would turn out, I mean, almost a flawless product. It's why that you don't have to be all competitive because they have their clients. I have my clients.
Yep.
Everybody has a good match that's out there if you can find it. And if once you get a good one, and it's somebody who's enthusiastic, generally they're going to want another car at some point. So you just treat them right and make sure that they're always the focus is like, hey, treating this guy right. I'm his car dude. And then, if I lose a few bucks here and there, big deal, because they're going to go tell their buddies who are like-minded. And then eventually they might come back and the second time around they're trained. They know how it goes. It's not going to be, I'm not going to have to coach them along. Like, no, like we're kind of cutting the edge here. This could really blow up in our face and we might have to go plan B, but we got to try it to even know because nobody's done it.
Yeah, that's good what you said that, when somebody's never had a car built or never had a house built and you're a house builder, it is a little bit of more communication to teach the people what's expected on both sides, the planning meetings, all that stuff. And a great industry guy, Bobby Alloway, said this one time, and he goes, if you don't build another car, if you don't build more than one car for that client, you screwed something up.
Yeah.
And I go, Bobby, I think you got blinders on, dude, because, he's building for the vice president of Whataburger and all these people, somebody that invented a switch that goes in every HVAC system in the world. And, he's got those customers, he's got customers. He's built a dozen cars. I mean, an Alloway car is not cheap. So think about that budget. And I was like, some people, that's their one and only dream car that they may not have money. It's weird because this truck behind me, that was going to be his car, right? And that's what he wanted. He always wanted a C10. Yeah, we called it Domino. It got a little out of hand. And then he showed it, and then he realized he really liked showing. And when the pop that he'd go to, even a local show, and the people's like, oh, I've seen that for the last 3 years. Then he realized, oh, somebody might want to give me a good chunk of money for it. Then he moved on, and now he's onto a second vehicle since then. I've not built them because I couldn't get the first one right in. But a buddy of mine that I taught had a wet sand and buff is building them for him. And so, not everybody has the budget. Some people might want, I'm going to build a hot rod. Then I'm going to go and get me a cool bass boat and go fishing in 5 years. Or I'm going to go get a Harley and ride to Sturgis. Not everybody has the budgets to do all of those. So, but I mean, we're lucky now that we're building more than one car for one person. So let's get back on the Datsun. So when was the plan? And part of the way through this, when it was like, maybe we should take this to the SEMA show.
So gosh, I'm trying to think of the first year I went to SEMA for the first year in 2012 because I was 21. So 2012, I went to SEMA with my dad. And
your first time going to SEMA and to Vegas, and you're just 21. Did you get in any trouble? Did your dad keep you out of trouble?
The only thing we did was we almost missed our flight home because we were out on Fremont Street till like 2 a.m. or something, and we had to leave for the airport at like 4:30 a.m. and we slept right through the alarm.
So allegedly, one time my dad and mom went, and we dropped them off.
Yeah, allegedly we almost missed
we have to say allegedly. Sorry, John Barefoot. I say allegedly too much on here, but we said allegedly a lot telling stories with my dad. And we dropped him and my mom off at like, they're tired, they're Midwest farm people. They got to be in bed by 8 o'clock. So we drop them off. We're going to meet Tucci's. And I think Rob Ida, we're going out and maybe going to a club or something, or me and Carrie don't drink. So we were designated drivers for all these people. And then we forgot something in our hotel room. So we ran back to the hotel. And about that time, I seen this guy jumping over the fence and running across the street. And I looked, it was my dad. So we waited till he come back, and He was looked upset. I go, Dad, what are you doing? Do you need something? We could have picked, we had the rental car. You need something from the grocery store, the convenience store? And he goes, well, no, I'm in Vegas. I want to go to Gentlemen's Club. That's not really what he said, but the Gentlemen's Club. And Mama didn't want to go. So he said, she said, go without me. And he walked over to one that was closed or it was out of business or something. I was like, Dad, if you want to go to Gentlemen's Club, we can go to Gentlemen's Club if you want to. And we didn't. But yeah, so my dad would get us in trouble probably. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's every year since it's gotten a little that first year, first maybe even 3 years doing it, you're like, oh, this is so cool. And then eventually you're like, you get a little bit more involved in SEMA and now I full-fledged work for SEMA on multiple levels at the SEMA show usually. And it's like, by the time I'm done, I want to get the fastest dinner in me and get to the hotel room and go to sleep because
my wife
I'm done.
runs the Optima races during there. She's up at
Yeah.
like 5:30 every morning, and our goal is to be back in the room if she's done working by 10:30, get dinner and go to bed. Because but your first few years, it's like me and buddies like Kenny Davis, we pick one night, stay out all night. But now I'm hosting banquets and on judging panels and SEMA. A lot of people go to Vegas to party, and if you treat SEMA like a job, there's a lot of good doors that can open and talk to product people, and that's what it's there for, and the networking. And I mean, I met people that turned into my TV show and moved me to Tennessee because somebody I met in a hallway at the end of the day. And
it's
crazy. I mean, right place, right time. That's it. But I'm not even excited about going this year. I'm going like part of the week. I'm flying home Thursday.
Yeah.
Going out early, go to the drag races, do my judging, do a couple banquets that I got to do with Armo and help good guys at the HRA banquet. I'm flying home Thursday, so I'm not even staying all week.
Yeah, it's I'm not even going, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, unfortunately. So my wife is.
I thought the car was going to be there.
No, the big reveal is no. It's so what happened. I got to interior about a month late. We were fighting, so we put that dual clutch transmission in it, and we got promised all along the way it's gonna, it's gonna be okay. It's just build it like you're gonna use it. And man, that thing killed about a month of my life and probably 10 years off me in stress. It still don't work right. So it got to interior late and I had to give up my booth. I had a killer spot. I mean, just an awesome spot. And it's the furthest I've ever been along on a car leading up to SEMA. Like, I mean, I had it running. Every single fabrication detail is on point, paint and body done, buffed, everything done. And then the transmission is the culprit. So it's going to get a different transmission, I believe, when it gets back. I think we're going to junk the DCT and go with the 8 HP, and then hopefully realign and hit GNRS if we can here. Give us an extra month or two. It wouldn't, I've been to SEMA enough times and I've done the SEMA crunch, a couple times, and it's not fair to eat up someone else's time.
Years. People still my age in their 50s have not figured that out, that you thrash, you kill yourself, and at the end, you did it, but there's always another show.
Well, we killed ourselves. I mean, starting in last December, we like really turned it on, me and my dad, and we're working stupid hours for 7 straight months there. Like, I mean, we're working Saturday, Sunday. We're working till 9 o'clock every weekday. We're getting there early to make sure this thing's good, because we really wanted to make a run at that Battle of the Builders. I've judged it. I've been in it. I know what I'm capable of. I know that the right year and the right equipment, we could make a real run and impress some folks. And so I just put all the marbles in it. The last 3 years, 4 years. Fully finished underside, metalworked every single component, every single detail. I mean, you've seen it on social media. Like, there's a lot packed into that one. And so I was really looking forward to it, and I really put a hard push on it. And then, I think it was July 1st, it was supposed to hit interior, and it didn't hit it till sometime in August. Just that transmission just would not. One day we'd finally get it moving, and then the next day you turn it on and the frickin' thing don't shift. And
I don't know if but SEMA is not a driving event.
If you're in Battle of the Builders though, at the top end,
it's got to,
if I wanted to just take it to go to SEMA and be in, we had a real sweet booth in Central Hall. It was going to be a reveal, all this cool stuff. It would have been perfect. I don't know if I'm allowed to say, and I don't want to say, because I don't want the people that got that space after to feel like secondaries, because no, they deserved it. I didn't make it, so.
Dude, I've talked to so many people last couple weeks at shows that, they're not going, or they're not taking a car. People that's been taking cars for 20 some years, because there's a few other big aftermarket companies that have pulled out that used to have 4 or 6 cars in their booth. I'm not going to say that company, but a lot of these buddies of mine, top end builders, were always hooked up with that company, and they're like, we lost our spot, man, because the company canceled like 3 months ago, and it's like, so we just stopped working on our whatever. And so we kind of got ahead of ourselves on this. So
we need to backtrack.
Let's go back to the Datsun for just a little bit. So
I had to soften you up with that, because I heard your intro and I went, I'm gonna have to break his heart a little bit on this one.
That's fine. I didn't stop the recording, so we're still,
That's perfect.
So you're not even going to go to a SEMA this year, you don't think?
Well, the golden lining behind it all is my wife is pregnant. She's due with our first child here early December, and so me, we got a decent buffer built in, but it was still stressing her out that I'm not going to, be within 10 hours or so of getting home quick if something happens. So if it makes her life less stressful, she puts up with a lot. Like I said, for the better part of summer and the entire 2024, we thrashed. And when you thrash, stuff at home gets a little neglected. So it's good to spend a little, I'm coming home closer to 5-6 o'clock now that the thrash is off, and spending more time. And
you really haven't been working that hard if you had time to make a baby. But then again, you can do that on lunch break, couldn't you?
Well, people thought I never left the shop, and now look. But no.
Well, allegedly, my wife used to visit me at the shop every once in a while.
Allegedly.
when you don't have employees, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to the Datsun and decide to take it to the SEMA show.
Yeah.
And so you entered Battle of the Builders.
Yeah. So I guess where we were at is I went to SEMA 2012. It blew my mind, opened my eyes, and I'd always known about it, but then it was really on my radar. And then I came again 2013, 2014, 2015, and so on. And then they entered, at some point, I think it was 2015, they introduced Battle of the Builders. Mm-hmm. And so I'd see all those cars, and I just knew what I was doing at home. So Instagram and social media and all that stuff was there, but it wasn't what it is today. Mm-hmm. So I could post something and get 50 likes, or not a lot of eyeballs on what's going on.
I looked a little bit ago before. You now have 164,000 Instagram.
I don't know how that happens.
But, I thought that was a big deal, and I got almost 20,000.
That's 20,000 people could see your, given the way the algorithm works, maybe 2% of who your followership or whatever actually sees your stuff, unless it's like takes off. But so anyways, I'm kind of under the radar. I'm building this Datsun, but I'm taking all this good eye candy I'm seeing at SEMA, and I'm incorporating it, and I'm seeing all these processes and different ways things are built that are badass in my opinion, and I'm incorporating that into what I'm doing, and I'm pushing pushing what I can do further. I'm doing stuff I've never done. I'm I guess I'm setting the bar, but I'm setting a pretty high standard, because I know I can do it. I could TIG weld like nobody's business by that time, and I had basic skills, and I could design stuff because I'd been doing that for a long time. But anyways, I'm just looking at this competition. I'm going, I could do this. Like, I know I can do this. My stuff, this is good enough. This is cool. It was a very passion driven project, because say I have a really cool owner who's like, well, what do you want to do? And when you give me that option, we're going to do something cool for sure. But anyways, so I'm building on this thing, seeing it. And then 2018 rolls along, and I'm, they've done the Young Guns segment by then. And so when you're your first SEMA, you're like, well, how do you SEMA? How does this work? How do I get a car to SEMA? You have no connections,
Mm-hmm.
you have, no brand partners, you don't know anybody. And so you're just like sending cold emails out like, hey, I've got this and this and this, and I've got 3,000 followers on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really funny to look back now on stuff that I did at that point, and especially after the little bit of blip of success there in 2018, because I was kind of a cocky asshole for a little bit. It's like I needed to be humbled a little bit because you get all this instant success and eyes on you and companies wanting to work
TV,
with you.
right? TV. They
Oh yeah, I did
TV, right,
some TV stuff too. Yeah, and it's like, oh, I'm kind of important. And then as you keep going and you reach that next level, you go, yeah, but Troy Trepanier exists and all these guys, and it's like I'm not shit.
Yeah.
I've got a lot to learn and a lot to do before I can even think, anything. And nowadays it's like I hardly send out any kind of asks for stuff because it's either taken care of with people I've been with for a while, or it's like I just don't feel like it's all that important in the grand scheme of it. Doesn't feel like it anymore. Like the magic of that kind of wore off.
So we you talk about that. You kind of got a little cocky. Like again, Josh from the Roadster, the Oil and Whiskey podcast. He was talking about that. I listened to one. I don't know how old it is. And he's like, man, I got the Trendsetter. That's back when he worked for Goolsby. They've got the Trendsetter. I don't know if you listen to that interview. And he goes, I get home and I'm like, cool. And finally, like day 3, my wife's just like, you still got to take the trash out and you got to mow the yard and all that. And he's like,
I think I caught that episode.
She goes, yeah, they do. Yeah. And I remember when I got my first Hall of Fame, my customer with the blue truck behind me, and he messaged me, dude, that's really awesome. He goes, did you take the week off? And I go, no, I'm at the shop because that didn't come with a check.
Yeah.
I'm still working. Yeah.
You learn real quick that all that praise and stuff doesn't pay the mortgage at all.
In the outside world, to like I hardly even know people in the town that I live in here, and the guy, you go back to see family from back home or something, that people that don't really know what hot rods are. I mean, luckily my brother-in-law is a car guy and a motorcycle guy, and my sister understands a little bit, and Carrie's brother kind of understands a little bit, and her mom doesn't really understand at all. And you see like somebody from school or whatever, and they're like, so you still messing with old cars? Yeah, I'm still messing with old cars. Some people just don't understand how big the world is, and that that there's people out there and we can make very good living, and it's crazy. I mean, I think all the chassis shops. Growing up, I didn't know anybody bought a done chassis.
Oh yeah.
Now there's 20 amazing chassis companies that are so busy it takes months to get a chassis. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
So when you finally come down from your high horse from that first year at SEMA, what did you go right into that next vet project?
So I started. So I won the Young Guns and the Gran Turismo and all that stuff 2018, and so
that's about the Gran Turismo. We won with that truck behind me. We won the best truck of the Gran Turismo.
Oh yeah,
and that was the year. What's his name? He won the overall very deservingly too because of the press and everything. The guy from Fast and Furious, when he built that first little yellow or white with the kids.
Oh, his name's not Han. It's gosh, I forget. Sung Kang. Yeah.
Super nice guy. I mean,
very, very nice. I remember vividly because we took my little brother to SEMA, and he still is the import guy in our family. And so he was just all over, the guy from Tokyo Drift, has a Z, and I'm building a Z. And so we were standing in line so he could get his poster signed. And I don't know, we glanced past him and he's signing stuff. And I said, hey, check this out. I'm building this Z. He wouldn't have known who I was or anything. And I wonder if at some point it ever came full circle. I saw that way before it ever went to SEMA, because it was like, you think, oh, maybe he's actually an enthusiast. Yeah, I'm building a Z myself. It's pretty cool. But anyway, we got his poster signed, and he was a super, super cool dude. But during that whole fiasco, the Gran Turismo thing, like I didn't even know half the guys I was standing up to. I was up there with Jesse Greening and Phil and Jeremy, who I knew who they were, but I didn't know half the cats there. And then now I look back and I go, oh, dude, that was super cool, actually. And they had, they were doing it up. They did it up big at some nightclub and all this, stuff. It was actually really. I just got a phone call during SEMA, and he's like, "Hey, yeah, you won a Gran Turismo award," and I'm like, cool is, what's that mean? What's all this? And I think I made some demands or something, thinking it wasn't, what is this? Like, I'm like, well, I've got 5 people with me. I need tickets for them too, and all this stuff. And then we get there, and I'm like, oh shit. It was cool, real cool experience. But yeah, I got off my, we did that. That was huge. Got a couple magazine cover, got the cover of SEMA magazine. That was cool. Led the SEMA parade. Uh, and then started my relationship with SEMA, which is
how old were you
ongoing.
Your first that first...
So I was 27. It's actually, I guess we need to backtrack just a little bit more because it's a really cool story. I was 27, and so back then that's the age out year for Battle of the Builders. So for the young guns. So I like I was saying, I was cold emailing people like, how do you get to the SEMA show? Eventually, I saw a thing for this Good Guys event, the one down in Pomona. It's like or Pleasanton, excuse me. It's like the grand one in August. And it said, young guns, and then there's these golden ticket winners. And if you're under 27 and you want to vie for a golden ticket, bring your car. I saw, and this is the last, after that, no more golden tickets. We've given them all out. And I saw that 3 days before that show, and I'm just working at the body shop. And, luckily my dad's half owner of the place. So if I needed to do something, we could probably make it happen. And I'm like, hey, this Thursday, I got to take the Z to this show. Like, I don't care if you can't, like, I'll load it in the trailer and I will take it myself. And he's like, no. And so he came with me, and my grandpa Gary came too, which is really cool. He just passed away. But it was cool to have these old memories, at least, why he was, mobile and stuff, to go do some of that cool stuff. But we went down to Pleasanton, and I'm driving this Z car in. And I'm early to the Good Guys show. I'd never been to a Good Guys show, in many years where I was actually taking a car. We used to go and, spectate. So I'm driving this car, and then I'm like, well, there's really no directions, like where to park or nothing, not knowing that you just kind of could park wherever you want. And then I see this little corral thing fenced off, and it says Young Guns. I'm like, oh, Young Gun. That's what I'm here for. Sweet. I read it online. It says, just be here. You can win it. So I park the Z. I get out, I'm kind of looking around, and pretty soon these 2 dudes walk up, and they're like, hey, who are you? What are you doing? And it turned out to be Mike Robledo and Ira Gabriel, who were running it. And I'm like, well, I'm Kyle Kuhnhausen. I'm here for the Young Guns. They said, come to this event. And they're like, well, we don't have you on the list. You had to kind of pre-register. And I'm like, well, I just read it online. It said, you got to be here. I'm here. And then, if I hadn't done what I had done, I probably would have not bet, they wouldn't have pulled strings for me. But I remember Mike Roberto kind of looked at this car, and he goes, I just see his gears turning. And he's like, probably thinking to himself, that's probably our winner right there. Because it was pretty, looking back, I don't, there's a million things I'd change. But in that era, in that time frame, it was a pretty sick little build. And, he's like, oh, well, actually, okay, well, yeah, you can stay. And so he pulled some strings for me, and if the other competitors knew that, they probably would have pitched a fit, because I knocked one of them out at least. But I ended up winning that golden ticket. So SEMA actually paid for my flight and meals and transport and all that stuff. So they do that every year for a few kids, and that's what I've been a part of since 2020, when I was judging, is determining, me and Cam and Jeremiah and Ryan, who were the judges, would get on the, it used to be events, now it's all Zoom, but we would decide who the golden ticket winners are, before the show, by doing all these, days worth of interviews and stuff, which I took really seriously, because I was one of those kids. It really it really helped me a ton, and then I'm on SEMA's radar too before the show, which is good, because, it's SEMA's kind of a who show. Like, when you have no connections, it's harder to make new ones. But when you have people like trying to help you connect, it's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, people that's never been, they just think, oh, I'm going to take my car to SEMA. I'm going to just go.
It's not a car show; it's a trade show.
Registration, and Yeah, that's one thing why it does good, because look what it did for you for the Battle of Builders. I have a bad story about Battle of Builders, why I'm against it, that maybe we'll get to.
Mhm.
That's about that blue truck. Um,
Yeah.
and it you got to have a company. It's like, well, reach out. Some young guys will reach out. What companies have you worked with? Like, what do you love on your car? Like, I know another guy. I think he was in the young guys. I don't know if you know who Riley Stair is.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
He
Yeah,
was
this super talented guy.
was the last 8 when they picked to go to the Olympics one year, and he blew his shoulder out. I mean, he
Yeah.
wasn't fast enough to go to the Olympics, but that's how good this kid was. So I kind of knew him, and always
Yeah.
kind of stayed, hey, I'm building a car, and he'd send me a few teaser pictures of that Trans Am that he built, and that was the first car that he built. And then
Talk about a first car, dude. That's
yeah,
that's. I mean, I love that car. Like I'm jealous that he got to build that car. It's super killer, and it just keeps
that was
getting
a Hot
better
Wheels
too.
car. You can buy it.
Yeah.
Hot
Yeah.
Wheels car. And so
It's all deserved credit on that one. That was just a killer build.
there was a little bit on that. He reaches out to me. Of course, he was thrashing to get it done. They didn't leave. I mean, he's a California boy. They didn't leave to come to SEMA until like the morning of the last day to move in.
Yeah.
And he calls me. He goes, "Hey, you know anybody that's got a shop in Vegas?" And something broke on it in the trailer. And they took it to my buddy Brick's shop at Dan's Driveline, and he's like, "Yeah, he's just wrecked his Bonneville truck. He's
Yeah.
lived through 100 and almost 70-mile 7-barrel roll at El Mirage just a few months ago." And he goes, "Yeah, you can bring it over." Well, they were out there like almost didn't think they were going to. They rolled it in at like 5 till midnight of the cutoff and got it in
Yeah.
the Vibrant booth. And
Yeah.
yeah, just
That's that SEMA
everybody has
curse
stories.
too.
Yeah, definitely.
I've been a victim twice, man. That Z car 2 hours before the transport truck showed up to pick it up. I'd been driving this thing. I mean, for 6 months. I had it done well in advance, and I was just tinkering. The alternator crapped out 2 hours before the transport truck showed up, and nobody in town, had the part I finally tracked one down, got it in with like 5 minutes to go meet this truck, and it's like you put it on the truck and you're like, well, shit, I'm gonna get to Vegas and I hope this thing works, because the way they did it, at least when I did it, was they transported you, but they took your car to the hotel, and you had to drive it from the hotel, Las Vegas Boulevard to SEMA, which is super comfortable in a customer car. And I was like, knock on wood, this sucker keeps charging, because I don't have a plan B really.
No.
And it did, and then the beige Corvette didn't. Its first fire up was in the mother's booth about 7 p.m. on a Thursday of SEMA. It was funny because I didn't know Jonathan with mothers until that time, and we showed up with an inoperable car, and he's like, "Mother's cars, we don't have inoperable cars. We're gonna boot you." And I'm like, "It looks perfect. Like, come on, man." And so I thrashed on that thing, trying to figure everything was right. Like, a week before the show, everything was right. I have no idea why this LT4 won't fire. We thrashed on that thing like hard. I mean, we were in some sketchy parking lot move-in day, like just down from the loading area, with a car up on blocks and all these, sketch apartments and people walking by, and we're just trying to figure out why this car won't run. And we got I believe it was Kevin Sherwood and some other guys, some of GM's like top guys from the testing grounds, and one of them, I mean, he was like involved somehow in creating this wiring, and he couldn't figure out why it's not starting either. Like, you did it all right. I wish we had guys like you, doing this for us. And finally, like, we just dicked with everything. I pulled the ceiling grommets out of the ECU, the three ECU plugs, plugged them back in, because I was like, I mean, what could it be? It's got to be like resistance or something. Every wire we've pinpoint checked, every single thing with like secret GM diagrams this guy got us. And I pulled them out, plugged them in. I just said, "Dad, crank it." Like, if this doesn't, it was like literally we're at the edge. It's Thursday night. Like, if this doesn't do it, we're going to go get some beers and we're just done. It's done. We're done. And it frickin' fired up and shot flames out the side pipes. And we were just, there a crowd like ensued around this mother's booth. Everybody's gone except like, we had just one tent flipped up because it was a little getting spicy in there. And, I mean, there's probably 50 people I feel like crowded around because it's a LT4 with straight pipe titanium side pipes. So it's 120 something decibels on cold start. Like it's wild. And we're, keeping it alive. And it was a really cool memory. And I think I lost about 5 years of my life on that one in stress, but it was a great memory. My future wife was there the whole time, and my dad, always by my side doing this crazy stuff we do. And it was super cool, but I mean, I haven't had one yet that wasn't somewhat stressful around SEMA time with some stupid problem that shouldn't be there. It ended up being a factory issue, and I believe they fixed it as a result of that. On it was a 2016 LT4, and then they did some revisions on the next step up or whatever. But
yeah, that's when I met you. I think it was the first day of the SEMA show. It was open, so it would have been Tuesday.
Yeah.
And Tucci's like, "Oh, you want to go meet this Kyle kid?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll come with you." And he goes, "He's having trouble getting it running. We got to see if he got it running." And you're like, "Yeah." And
thank God for the Tucci's, man. I love Dave's my idol, but
no, I've known them.
Dom's a good buddy too.
Yeah, I've known them since Dom was a little nugget, like probably since he was at least 7 or something like that. I mean, I went to Dom's wedding and I helped Tucci when he was doing a Riddler car, and they're some of the best people. We're getting ready to have them both on here too. Some of the best people you ever want to meet. He just lost his dad, and his dad was
I saw that. And that's
just great,
unfortunate.
Great people.
Yeah, they were really pulling for me to like introduce me to I think they introduced me to the HP Tuners guy who introduced me to these GM guys who, I mean, like the one's wife had to just stand there with my girlfriend at the time for hours while we're just doing like electrical diagnostic stuff in the booth here. And she's just like, "Oh yeah, this," and we're like, "Oh, we're so sorry, but you can't have him back either. We need him." But thank you. And she's, "Oh, this, he loves this kind of stuff." And we're like, "No, nobody loves this kind of stuff, but here we are." But no, it was awesome, and that's just the community we're in there at SEMA, and with all the good guys and people there that would at the drop of a hat help a stranger figure something out in a parking lot.
And that's you touched on earlier, the camaraderie. And me and my buddy Chris Ryan, we talk about this, and he goes, "There's not really a lot of assholes in the hot rod industry." And I'm like, "No, there are. We just don't associate with them." Because like you get to know all these people, and like you say, the Gerber boys and Troy from Rad Rides, and especially Moose that works for him, and Jesse Greening and Goolsby. You get to know all these people, and they're all, if they got the time, they'll help you if you get someplace or haul something back from a swap meet that I bought or some craziness. And there's some great people in this industry. There really is.
For every ass, there's 10 solid, just awesome, lifelong friends. So I don't run into too many assholes in the industry. I mean, there's in the business side, yeah, of course, that's what that is the nature in. But in the builder side, nah, not a lot.
Yeah. I again, not to plug in their podcast a lot. Jeremy Gerber, he said that one time. He goes, I know one day like the Gong Show bell is going to go off, and they're like, "Okay, the gig is up." We're like, kind of like the Truman Show movie. You can't really build hot rods for a living. You got to go get a job. And so we kind of touched on that vet there, the one you had. So what that was we'll go back real quick on that. That was at the very next. You were already working. Yeah,
so I won the Young Guns 2018, and I was my big goal in life at that point was I don't want to be that young. I don't want to be associated as a young gun. Mm-hmm. I'm a builder. I want to prove through my work that I'm not just a little blip. I'm somebody that wants to stick around the industry for the long haul. And I'm not just going to take, the handouts and the training wheels. Not a handout, but there's definitely some help from SEMA and the Young Guns program to elevate you to that point. And I didn't want to.
But as much as some stuff that I'm against the Battle of the Builders, that's my favorite part of it. to say we need more blood, and them putting the spotlight on guys like you, and there's been other people and some killer four-wheel drive guys, and my friend uh, Austin Phipps. I don't know if you know him.
Oh, no, he's from Herman. You know, he's in my same state. Austin's awesome. I've had him. We've both been in the top 12, at least in 2020 for sure. I think, and then I think I when I was judge later with his Nova, he also made top. I think he made top 3.
Yeah,
I hope he made. I hope he made top 3, and if not, I'm sorry, Austin. You deserved it. But
I think he did for the young guys, and I know he's got a new truck that he's doing like a petite with a lot of other fab. I don't know. Is he still in the young guns? Is he still that age group?
Well,
bumped up yet?
he may be because they bumped it. So it used to be 27 and now it's 29. Okay. Just trying to find a bigger pool of talent to keep it, you know, fresh and cool. Because for, you know, some years you just don't get enough entry. You know, they're out there. It's just, how do we get these talented people interested? And so I always did my best to try to find people and be like, hey, you should enter. Like, you're what I'm literally going to be the one judging you. I want to see your stuff. You know, enter. Yeah, the worst you can get is a no. Yeah. But you could get a freaking trip to SEMA, and all you got to do is pay the tax on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then NSRA and Good Guys always does what they call the next generation.
Yeah, they
used to be young.
I think Goolsby does something with it. Yeah.
And that's how I met Eric Pratt. We parked at that time. It was 25 and under. We parked together in the young guys section. Yeah. Pro Street 54, and he had his Pro Street 32 Ford pickup truck, and that's how we got to know each other, because we parked in that together, you know. So
yeah. No, I've met so many cool young talented individuals like through judging that. It's you know, that are building new stuff now. Like, I mean, like Thomas Dickerson's a good example. He was a young gun. He went to school for it, brought a Mustang. It was really awesome. And now he's building just a super badass C10 with a Morrison chassis and all this. I'm not sure where he's debuting it at, but it's like, man, what a talented, awesome kid. And just, you know, they're just such respectful, nice young people too. It's just refreshing.
So, okay, I'm going to talk about the thing that tripped my trigger on the Battle of the Builders. One, sometimes people think SEMA's is a car show. It is a trade show. They do a car show during it, and you know, awards and all that, a bunch of different awards. But the year we were doing this blue truck right behind me, we kept that under wraps. We had the Flowmaster booth.
Yeah.
And that was when you turned around in the Ford booth, right down the middle of the stairs. It was the first booth right there in the middle. And I'm unveiling a way cheaper vehicle. I mean, we did very good with that truck. But a lot of magazines, won a lot of awards. But there's 3 vehicles in this booth. I'm next to Rad Rides and Ring Brothers.
Good luck, man. That's a tough draw.
Like $1 million car and a $700,000 car, and here we got something that's like $1.25, you know. And but we held our heads up pretty high. But we had to keep it secret. Nothing on the internet, because they wanted people to come to their unveilings. It was this whole thing, little contract, and there is a few assholes in the industry, because there was a company that tried to get that spot. Allegedly, they offered Flowmaster $5,000 for that spot. This shop did, to kick me out.
Oh, I think there's plenty of that stuff probably goes on, but it's, you know, something that I think about a lot, but you know, it almost seems automatic for some people to get spaces at SEMA, but I feel like it doesn't matter how cool the stuff I build. It's always a fight to try to find a good central hall spot, because there's so many people that want them. You know, it's just like
harder, because
I think I'm just calling the wrong people or something. But I mean, I had a really great one dialed up, and I'm grateful to that company for even considering me. But it's tough with that Z car. To continue that story, I'm just going to keep jumping around and coming back.
Yeah, but I have ADHD too.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah. It's, as long as it's undiagnosed, nobody knows. But I have this Young Guns ticket, and 3 weeks before the show, this guy calls me and he goes, "Hey, we'd love to, you know, I got your email. We'd love to have your car in the boot." You know, this is email I sent out probably 6 months ago. And it's the guy at CCW Wheels, because I had CCWs on. I didn't have, I had a couple sponsors on that, people that I'm grateful for, Radium Engineering, Fuel System. They've been with me from literally the start. And then every time I can use them, like we partner on, they're on my darts I'm building. whenever I can use them, I call them and they're like, hey, we believe in you. And they believed in me before SEMA was even there. I think I went to a local Datsun show, and Aaron, one of the people involved over there, saw it and was like, hey, how can we help you? And Vibrant Performance, they hopped on, anybody that got with me on that first one before I had done anything. It's like, I don't care what product you have, if it competes with theirs, that these are my people. Like
But Bobby Albury says you danced with the
loyalty.
people that took you to the dance.
Exactly.
That's
BF
Bobby Albury.
Goodrich. I mean, everybody that got involved on that first one is like grandfathered in on all of them. It's like you get first right of refusal. Yeah, like if you want to drop me, that's totally fine. But you're stuck with me otherwise. And I feel like that gets you further than chasing, hey, they're going to give me more. No, it's not what it's about. It's about the people. And the lots of people don't understand that what makes things like magazine features and online features and all that happen is these companies pay for that that magazine to write that article, and that, and they just choose you because that you're one of their people. And so there's a lot more than product on the line there. And then as you mature, you get past product and you get into brand endorsements and stuff like that too. And then it's like, hey, this is actually kind of like helping me make a living. And it's because I was loyal to these people and delivered enough times that now it's kind of like on autopilot. But anyways, he calls me out of the blue like 3 or 4 weeks before SEMA, and I'm already in this Young Guns program, and they put all the Young Guns back in like the North 40, parking lot, like out of Central Hall, like in the back opposite of like the tread pass, which is awesome. You still get to the show, but the eyeballs on you are back out there is just not nearly as prevalent. And so the CCW Wheels is in this block, and the spot they're offering me is literally right next to Roadster Shop's Rampage Camaro, like a car that I've, had a heart on since it was built because that thing was freaking sick. Probably their Rampage Camaro was maybe one of my favorite builds ever because I'm a second gen Camaro guy, a road race guy. And then you put the two together and it's like, oh my God. I had to shelf mine when they dropped Rampage because I was building a wide body Camaro with my brother and my dad, and I just went, it's over, guys. We can't even get close. But anyways, and so I called up Mike Robledo, who I had some rapport with at that time, because I'd come through, we did the stuff, and I'm doing all the right stuff, trying to make my little way, learning how to socialize and make the best of SEMA and bring partnerships together and just doing everything I can do. I'm doing the most. And that he was that kind of guy. And he's, I think he took note of that, and he's like, hey, this guy's also articulate and can, he's going to be good for this program. And I'm like, hey, I really appreciate this Young Guns ticket, and I'm super grateful. And you can tell me no, but hey, I've got this Central Hall spot, and they were saying I could have it. Can I still do your program, but can I park in Central Hall? And I think, again, they probably pulled some strings for me, but anyways, made that happen. So I had to and that's probably why that car blew up, is it was just in the right place at the right time, had all the right stuff. And everybody walking by, and then obviously it came with me, who at that time I'm just on cloud nine, and I want to show every single person at the show my car. I want to, to the point where I lost my voice by like early Wednesday, like gone. Can't talk. I just can't. It's gone. I've talked to that many, every single person that looked at that car with any interest. Hey, I'm Kyle. I built it. Can I answer any questions? Can I, showing everybody? And I think people really took a liking to that because I was enthusiastic. I was there to interact with people and to show them my pride and joy that I've been working on for so long. And I'm sure that's why I got the Gran Turismo award. I remember seeing Sam Dew, who was the editor of Super Street, walking by at one time. And I was walking with Sherry, who was my girlfriend at the time. And I just heard him whispering behind us, hey, that's the guy that built that 240Z. And I went, yeah, they're starting to know. Sweet, it's working. I couldn't turn around because, pride. But I was like, hey, that's awesome. That like made my whole night. And I just knew at that point, like, people were actually really taking an interest in this car. This is really like, it's a different kind of like high you get, like a feeling like when you do all this work under the radar, and then you get all that appreciation and get to see how people like really enjoy all these ideas you had and all the stuff you did.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I pulled some more strings and it just kept getting a little better and a little better, and then it just peaked all SEMA show, and then I started learning how to be on I was a little overexcited at first, and so it's funny to watch some of those interviews, and like the old I was on Hoonigan back in their golden era, like 2 months before SEMA. Again, a sponsor. I think Aaron at Radium had talked to somebody at Hoonigan for me and made this happen. So it's always more than parts. These sponsorships, it's kind of a relationship. And so I went and did that, and every now and then I'll see it and I'll click on it, and it's just like, oh man, it's just so funny to look at how I used, it's just the enthusiasm just jumps out, like,
I still get
and
down with
I'm talking over everybody because I want to tell you everything about it, and it's just funny, and then I eventually found my pocket, and then had a kind of a sweet gig doing the judging thing for the Battle of the Builders program.
So here's I'll finish my Battle of the Builders thing. One,
Yeah.
that you work so hard to get that SEMA spot, you get that booth. And if you get so far in the judging, you got to leave that booth. And I always felt bad.
And then they're unhappy sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. And I know some have pulled strings to get, okay, we got the backup car outside and allegedly got it in, and so that booth isn't empty. But my thing to finish real quick on that blue truck. So we had to keep it quiet for that Flowmaster thing. The customer wanted to enter Battle of the Builders. I go, you do it if you want to. So he sent it in, and that's when you used to get that weekly paper. Remember, I think they just send you out the emails now. You might get a monthly thing. But on the cover, so I can't bitch because we did get press. They took the rendering and put it on the cover of that magazine. Hey, Tim Strange Motion, but brand new car being debuted in the Flowmaster booth. And then
you're sweating looking at your contract now.
I got an email. Hey, we told you to keep this off the internet, out of the magazines before you pulled the cover off. That was 2 weeks before SEMA. I almost lost my SEMA spot because he put it in there. Do not put this out. Do not share this. They put it not only in a magazine or on a website, they put it right on the cover. He was excited, but then he goes, is this causing us trouble? And I don't do this for customer cars anymore, but I helped this guy get a lot of products, and he did too. He's very good at marketing, so we got a lot of free products because it's going to see, and a lot of discounted products. And I go, if we lose that spot, somebody's got to pay for all those parts, and it was a lot. It was a lot. Yeah. And luckily, I put some fires out, and from that on, any vehicle that we took, customers or me, never got signed up for Battle of the Builders. Because that made me almost
it's a double-edged sword, and nowadays I believe they take them. They used to just take them Friday, and now I think they take them Thursday and Friday to really do more on stage stuff with them and put them in their corral. And so you really got to have a backup. Like if you're the only car in that booth, that's kind of tough. It's tough, but
one more thing on judging, and then I won't talk about that truck. As the show was open, I'm standing there facing the truck. This guy that I know from a huge company walks up, and he's got this folder, and he's, oh, Tim, how you doing? What you been doing? Did you bring anything? I go, I brought that truck right behind you. He goes, holy crap, you should have entered that in the Battle of the Builders. And I go, I did, but you don't want to hear the story. I go, why do you say that? He goes, well, I'm judging, and I'm judging the trucks. And I go, well, why did you say I didn't enter it? He goes, because they didn't give me the paperwork on this truck.
Oh.
It wasn't even one from that wasn't even worth their time to go look at. According to the pictures and the info that we sent in, or they pre-pick 20 to go look. They can't judge every car. And I was like, dude,
no.
I go, I don't play the games. I don't do the politics. So I don't really care. And it hurt his feelings that he didn't have every truck in his thing to look at.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I mean, the guy still apologizes to me all these years later, and it is like, whatever, dude. So okay.
So I've got the insight on the judge. I've literally been one of the 4 judges for a few years, and it feels like every year I miss one call, or it's like I almost have it. At the hot rod level, I don't envy Cam at all, because every one of those cars is spectacular in its own way.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to try to judge those, but I have to judge the young people coming up that are literally me at some point. And only three get to be top three, so everybody else is going to have hurt feelings or feelings like they didn't do good enough. And I always miss at least one call. I'm only
At least
human.
they're getting right judges. They're peer judging. Like all these
Yeah,
other people that I know that has helped, it's legit people. It's not like,
yeah,
oh, this guy, oh, grab this guy. It's really people that know what the hell they're looking at. So
yeah. I mean, huge respect for all the judges. They
yeah,
all know what they're looking at. And if you have hard feelings nowadays, now that I know all the judges, it's like, no, we really work hard to make the good calls. But
yeah.
there's always one where it's especially last year. I had one young person that I just didn't have enough information in front of me to make the right informed decision, and I blew it, and I felt so bad. And I found him, and I said, hey man, I'm real sorry. And he, he had some tears, and it's heartbreaking sometimes. And so I don't envy the judging at all. And to be honest, I'm happy to take a year off of it. Or I believe they just changed it moving forward. I don't know if I'd even be involved moving forward the way I think they're gonna have the young guns judge themselves now, like peer judging.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm not even really sure. Like say it's an odd year for me, being that I haven't missed her in 12 years, and I'm gonna be having to step away for a year.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we'll touch as we like to go out of sequence. That
Mhm.
first vet you took to SEMA, when was the decision? Was that always like, oh, this is my next car, I'm going to SEMA when you started that? Was that always
Yeah.
that one?
So like say I built that one for a known guy. He'd been a friend for quite some time, and my dad had built him lots of hot rods. He built him a 33 Roadster Highboy that won the Portland Roadster Show in like 2007 or something. So he'd had some cars built. This was my first time being the lead, where this is my business. I'm building you this car. And so right from the get-go, it was like, hey, the SEMA show's coming up. We'd sure like to do this. And he was always all about, whatever helps you guys. Like, we just, it was more than a customer. He was just a good friend.
And obviously he knows what it takes because he had a car nice enough to win the Portland Road.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So he was well versed. It's funny, like he's an old school guy. So if it was ever any talks of money, he would call me to set up an appointment, and we would go, talk face to face.
Mhm.
And I always like that. I always like to spend a little time with him. But yeah, basically, hey, anytime he'd come check out the car, which is maybe every 2 months, he'd just cut me a check for something, and then at the end of it, I finally give him an invoice, and we settle up all the way. But we never had real money discussions. He knew I'd be fair and honest with him, and he knew that he wanted us to build him that car.
Mhm.
And so it was always just easy going. I've been real lucky with all the clients I've had. I've had two prospective clients that didn't get past the deposit stage without getting booted. And luckily I had the
Oh,
wherewithal to
I bet
boot
like
them.
30 of those.
Yeah, I've had $150,000 checks bound. That hey, here's the checks, but you can't put them in the bank till X. It's like,
Yeah.
well, this is fishy. Why is there two? Why isn't your name on them, and why can't I put them in the bank? I'm glad we signed a contract before we started all this.
Hey, by
But
the way,
anyways,
can you pay cash from here on out?
if you want me to from this point, yeah, cash.
Yeah.
No, yeah, no, I've been really blessed. And yeah, SEMA was always the plan with the beige Corvette, and we did that one. So I started that one December 2018, and it went to SEMA 2019, and it was a full tilt deal. I didn't really know what I was doing still yet because I'd never built a vet. I'd never built a car for SEMA in a year, and I still had a day job from January through September. Finally, September, and this gets back to working for my dad. I probably would still be working as a bodyman and moonlighting for my business building hot rods because it was such a good career. Kind of we came down to the wire, and it's like, if you don't basically go full time right now, this car is not going to SEMA. And so one day I just walked into the office and I think I'd finished my work for the day and he was like, well, I think it's time. I think you need to be done. And I'm like, done what? And, done working here. And I'm like, oh shit, I didn't really plan on it. Like
Your dad kind of fired you.
No, he didn't. He fired me for my own good, is what he did. He didn't fire me. He let me go for my own good because I needed to finish that car to reach my dreams.
But you have kept them words in your pocket. When he gets too old to help you in your shop now and he's messing stuff up, you can just tell him at the end of the day, Dad, I think it's just time you're just done.
Yeah. I mean, I worked real close with a guy for a lot of years and he took care of, he was the lead and I was, he did all the Bondo and I did 99% of the metal work, chassis work, and nut and bolt work because we were a team. So we got paid like a team. And that was our most efficient thing was, Mark, I'm going to do everything to just keep you sanding, you old dog. And, so I got real good at replacing bedsides and quarter panels and all this stuff.
My cat is back.
Phantom cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember I walked in the office and I walked out and I said, I think I'm gonna go work for myself, Mark. Like, yeah, sorry, it's cold turkey, but I just found out myself. But and so I stopped because I just got Jonathan from Mothers had just called and just said I could have that booth space, so it was real. Now I need to come through for sure, and we were not, we were pretty far off the mark for making SEMA.
So this guy, Mark, that you worked with at the body shop, have you ever had him come and help you after his normal day job and help you on a project? Or is he still quitting?
I'd love to, but I can't afford him. He's a real smart, super hardworking dude. So he's the best flat rate body guy you could ever meet. He's it. But he also does a lot with flipping houses and doing builders. And he's got this beautiful property that he kind of bought early and kind of had to work his ass off his whole life to make, and now he's really done well for himself. So he's so busy actually making money. He doesn't want to come fuck with or screw with my hot rods, at all.
Yeah. Cool though. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. And then was there something else in between there before you started the vet you're on now?
Yeah. So, well, after that COVID hit and, I just wanted a filler project just to stay busy. And so another just awesome dude and one of my best buddies, Joe, and I can talk all day about him. He's, he doesn't care. Joe Martin. He brought me the what we call the Banana Boat 55. And it's 55 Bel Air. It was a basket case. I think my dad's shop painted it and threw a 4-link in it like 3 decades ago when they were still doing like side hot rod work and stuff. And then it just sat kind of unassembled for that long. He's probably got 5 or 6 projects like this where it started and then it stopped. And now it's like a, kind of a basket case that needs a lot of help. But anyways, it's like, hey, so call up Joe. Joe, I'm, if you want, I'm ready to start on that 55, any day. And he's like, yeah, it's cool. And I love to spend as much time with Joe as I can because he's just a character. Just a fun guy to banter with. I mean, he's basically family. But anyway, so he always brings in this 55 and I'm looking at it and it's got a ton of rust, that we didn't plan on. I bolt up the doors. This thing was painted. I was supposed to just assemble it, basically get this old project assembled on the road, put the doors in. They're literally a 1/2 inch too long for the opening and everything's painted. And I mean, just all kinds of stuff. And so we kind of backtracked and kind of went like, Joe, if, do we want to move forward? Yeah, he likes this 55 and it'd be cool to have one done hot rod would be sweet. And it's pretty badass. It's got the, it's old school ish, with obviously my flair of having some import and some hot rod and modern tech kind of mixed in, but trying to, give him some old school nostalgic stuff with like the moon pedals and
it's got a roots blower on it too, right?
It's got a real GMC truck 671. It's got a big block, big old, I mean, the bastard lost the spec card to the cam, so it's going to be a nightmare to tune. But it's got just the biggest cam you could get. Basically, it's like, Joe, what are you doing? But hey, okay. The engine's been built. It'll probably make 800 horsepower. I mean, it's not going to make. We're not going to turn it. That's all it needs to make to have some fun. But it's got kind of that old school stance where it's a little high in the ass, big old 18-inch slicks. He let me do a Bowler 6-speed Tremec in it, so it's manual with the roots blower. We did Hull EFI. So it's going to be really like a hot rodder's fun car to dork around with. And I just am working on putting air jacks on it. So it's it's got some different stuff going on, but it's pretty fun. So I've been working on that. I was humping on that. And then the 66 vet guy called and Joe's a good buddy, but we never really planned on, this was going to be like a 4 to 6 month assembly thing. And so in that time, I'm looking for a big fish to build another full tilt to kind of keep building the blocks and doing something a little better than the beige Corvette. And so eventually that phone call came through, and I met with the owner of that, and we got a contract signed. And it's like, hey, I think I got Joe's car into final prime. We got the metal work done, all the rust done, the body fitting. I got most of the fab done, did a front clip on the chassis. Just had I have a little bit of chassis work left to do, and then I'm refitting the car right now, and then we'll block it out and see if it's truly the final prime. But I got it to like this really cool point. It's like, oh man, if I just had 4 to 6 more months, like we could just be done with this. I could have all the parts out, all the space. But the 66 is coming in, and being that it's a full tilt high dollar thing, he wants to see some progress, and naturally, as the process goes, if you got a good builder and a good client, we kind of grew together and started becoming buddies as much as clients, and doing extras and extras and extras. And then it got out of proportion. And then we're building this thing to be the baddest, thing at Battle of the Builders if we can. And, so that snowballed. I think that was supposed to be done with that one, like contractually in like March of 2023 or something. And he's just like, hey, I'm not really worried about the time. Just keep doing what you're doing. He knows I look out for him and just do the right thing. And also, I don't invoice anybody full tilt. Someday I'll be there, but it's these guys now that are helping me get to that point where that value is proven there for somebody to actually write those checks.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then I guess to build, I also had a 64 Dart in the mix that I was building. I didn't plan on this one. My dad kind of just brought it in, and I had that vet planned, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, we don't have time for this. But anyways, it's for my grandpa. He bought it new for my dad's dad. He bought it new in 64 for my grandma who had passed. And we were just going to do like a quick, fix the rust, spray it white, maybe throw I think we're going to throw a small block that my dad and his dad built because they were drag racing together when they were younger. It's the first motor my dad ever built, and it's just been under the stairs of our shop since forever, basically, for me. So we were putting that in there and doing a quick spray out and just kick it out. Like, it's never going to be something that cool. There's just not any funding or anything to do that. But that snowballed because then the arrangement came around that, hey, we're building this for you, but at some point it's coming back home where it belongs to me and my dad to actually go race and stuff. And so the plan had to change because I have no interest in a car that, is just a spray it and drive it type thing. Like, I want to build a full ass blown race car. But so it came back, and we did a Morrison front and rear clip, cage, air jacks. Unfortunately my grandpa recently passed, and so he's not gonna drive it at any point. So we're kind of like, hey, back to the drawing board. We have an LS3 525 sitting around, and it's like, hey, if we're actually going to go race this thing and maybe do like some Optima events, stuff like that, why don't we throw that LS3 525 in there and throw it like an extra foot back through the firewall than we already have and make it like an actual race car. So that we're kind of in the stage of like, I'm trying to find some build partners that want to throw a couple shiny pennies our way and throw their name on this thing and actually, get some wheels turning on that project. But so I had those two, and then the vet kind of superseded all that because it's like, hey, we got a signed contract. Somebody wants to actually build something notable. And unfortunately, I had to jump off of the two that are kind of more like passionate in my lane type of thing. I'm more of like a mechanical. I will never own a muscle car with a stereo, any of that nonsense in there. Everything should have a manual transmission. That's kind of my stuff I'm passionate about. And then like the 66 is like extremely high end, so it's got to have all the bells and whistles and more. And then also the build quality of something that's going to go show at prominent shows and the functionality of something that I could be proud of. So it's like almost like a oxymoron of a car, but it really does deliver on all that stuff. Basically because I hate myself and like to pull my hair out.
So we kind of touched base on that car a little bit ago about all the stuff and all the fabrication in it. And we asked a lot of our guests on the podcast here of posting stuff on social media. Like I usually don't post hardly anything. Like when I did that Chevelle for me and my dad, of course I didn't know how long it was going to take. I was working on it whenever. And I posted a few teaser things, but never much until it was done. It went to SEMA. It was in a Royal Purple booth. And I don't like to post one to let people know, hey, this is going to be at SEMA, because then you get, oh, you're never going to make it, because here it is a month and a half. It's not even painted yet. But like Goolsby's famous for that, for his giveaway cars at Good Guys. He backed, oh, this is what we're doing this week. The car's already painted, and he's showing fab pictures 3 months before it's supposed to be done. So, you can't believe everything that you see on the internet.
You're not supposed to pull the curtain back and let them know that it's not real time.
Yeah.
It's never real time.
And you post a lot of stuff. Maybe it's a generational thing because you're younger. You post all the little details. But then again, on a car like that's going to Battle of the Builders, there's so much stuff in a lot of projects, not only that you do, but a lot of people, that when it's all together and it's sitting on the show floor, you can't see this little hole in this bracket and all that stuff and all that stuff what is that company that I learned from you?
Send it has to be.
Yeah.
Those are my saviors.
Last year, and I go, how I heard from you? So I told them that and they're like, oh yeah, he sends a lot of people our way. He sends a lot of people.
Yeah, it's man, talk about a like life-changing service. Like when you get access to CNC stuff like that, and you don't have to have $1 million in capital out there for it. Like that's a game changer.
Yeah.
But oh gosh, where was I?
We were talking about that vet.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So the social media stuff.
Yeah.
Where
we were too.
It happens. I get excited about things now. I just kind of look at that as like the best free marketing I can do for myself. It's, I don't have a marketing budget. Like if people saw the cars I build and the paycheck I actually take home, they'd be like, why do you do this? Because someday that paycheck will be astronomically larger than it is now. But to build a company and not, take a bunch of financing and to just buy this stuff as you can afford it and not outgrow your britches and get too big too fast, keep overhead low. Like it takes a lot. There's not, I don't have $1,500 to run magazine ads and Wheel Hub or whatever. I'd love to. That'd be awesome. I'd love to open that up and see my company and go, yeah, that's sick. I just don't have the.
You know this because you're a little younger, but there was a time when I started. The only thing you could do was take a car to a show or get it in a magazine. You could get the artist rendering. Sometimes, if you're lucky, they might do a few build-ups. Sometimes when the car was done, they'd ask for pages, pictures of construction. But you're pretty much from the generation that you've had social media from the start.
Yeah,
that's our first guest that like.
Well, and it's crazy. Like for instance, I work closely with Willwood. Like they've taken good care of me, and you hear praise and you hear people against them, and the people against them generally don't know how to spec out a brake system correctly. But they just were a company that was good to me, and I like their product. And a good example is like last week or 2 weeks ago, I posted just a stupid video. Like I was just like, hey, I've been really absent because I was thrashing on that vet. One of the things you have to do to be successful in the social media thing, which is a whole business of its own, is be consistent. And it's hard to do that when you're thrashing on a vet and you're having transmission problems for a month where you drop this thing out 3-4 times, totally rewired it, pulled your hair out diagnosing things. It's like, no, I'm not going to stop and spend half an hour throwing a post together for today. That's screw that. It might be 2 months before you see me again here. Whereas sometimes you might see me every single day because I've got a backlog of 20 videos lined up where it's like, okay, I can get on a roll. But I posted this thing showing the electronic parking brake for Willwood just because I think it's pretty cool, and I made these brackets that retrofit it to the Art Morrison IRS, and I'm thinking about selling some of those, and so I'm like, hey, I'll just show people that this is a thing, this exists, and it's had over 6 million views in a few. Where else are you going to get marketing like that costs you $0? It cost me 30 minutes of time. Where are you going to get your name in front of that many folks? And Willwood, somebody I work with, like, when I need something, they might remember that and they might go, hey, that's actually tangible. That probably, if you think of the 0.001% of people that actually watch that will make a purchase, that number actually adds up to some ROI,
Yep.
It's crazy, but I do it because of exactly what you said. I'm building a resume for the car for when we do get to that big show. Because I've been a judge. I know that literally you get one picture, one paragraph to decide if you're even going to get to look at this car because there's too many entered and there's only one night to do it. So you get to pick about 12 to 20 cars out of the field in each category that we can actually go put eyes on. So you better jump off the freaking page with your picture and your paragraph. And I think lots of people miss that, which is great insider information for everybody entering the Battle of Builders this year. That picture and paragraph are extremely important, and it is not the time to thank your sponsors. Tell them what you did to that car and why they should go look at it. Don't list the parts on that car. We don't give a shit about the parts on that car.
Obviously,
I want to know
the
what
customer didn't do a very bang, paragraph to get them to even want to come look at the truck.
And if it can be a picture of not
Prismo Award, for best truck,
yeah.
So.
Yeah. And don't make the picture a rendering. Make it the actual truck so we know that it got finished, because everybody has a rendering. It's what you do at the beginning.
Yeah.
We don't know that thing's here.
That's exactly right.
But anyways, so pop off the page there. But once if say you make it past that initial thing and you're vying for a spot in the top 12, we literally get 8 minutes, probably 8 minutes per car to actually look at it. And we got 80 something cars that are from South Hall to out freaking West Hall now. Like, we are hiking along and we don't get a little golf cart or nothing. Like, we are walking, for like 10 straight hours vigorously judging these cars, because we got to actually put eyes on them, and we actually give a shit and take our time and try to do the absolute best we can. But sometimes nobody's there. We can't see what's under the hood. We can't open your doors. Like, I've got too much respect. I'm not going to go fiddling with somebody's stuff because I know that some of it's probably rigged together, and I don't want to be the culprit that made your door handle stick for all of SEMA or whatever. But anyways, so it's like, if I can preemptively, and I know the eyes that are on me, I can literally see, like, okay, he's the judge. He saw that. Okay, I know he knows that. Check that box. Keep moving on your day. And if I get any extras, great. But I'm really doing it to build the resume, to show every little detail of this build, like not just the end product, but like, here's the actual process. Like, it's, there's an R&D process. There's the actual building of the thing. There's the finishing of the thing. There's the installation, finished product. Like, I try to wrap it all into one thing. And I feel like people like seeing the whole process start to finish, because I get sick of just looking at the end product. Like, I'd rather look at a car at the fabrication stage than the finish stage, just because that's kind of in my wheelhouse of stuff. I want to see how that TIG weld was laid down instead of how it looks when it's painted satin black under there or whatever. But,
and that's one thing that a customer we talked about that's never had a car built that you have to educate them on is, what do you mean you took that back off the car on and off 30 times or whatever?
You mean you dropped the powertrain 7 times?
You don't just do it once and done with it. And the mock up, the build, and all that the beginning customers, you gotta have to
yeah. Yeah, I built that car 5 times actually because it, every, after primer, a Corvette, they're their own beast because trying to make fiberglass actually straight and stay is a science and an
First
art.
body shop I worked on, we did collision work and concours Corvettes. He was a big Corvette guy. Like he had such a Corvette name that I remember at least one car that was bought brand new when I was in high school, and it was drove straight to us to strip and put a nice paint job on it. That's how good a
Yeah.
reputation Reggie had for the Corvettes. And
Hmm.
it's a whole different world. You have to
It's,
be half Gumby to get inside of stuff to reach out. They bolt everything up, but I still
yeah.
love vets. I just don't really fit in them. I learned to drive a 4-speed in a vet, and but yeah. So now
Yeah.
when this thing's done, do you got the other car? Is there something else that you've started on already that you can talk about, or what's the
Well,
future after this one's all wrapped up?
I'm back on the 55 now, and that'll be done by around probably springtime. I'd love to hit some good guys events with Joe, the owner. Why we can, man. Like he loves Barrett Jackson and Hot August Nights too, and so I've never been to either. And it might be cool to go with Joe. And he actually likes he's a retired dentist, but he likes transport. He used to own a trucking company prior, and so we always make trucker jokes with about him. But he loves just trailering cars around for guys, for some side money and stuff. So it's like, hey, I can take a car, and I finally have a customer that will actually haul their own car. This
Yeah.
is sweet. We can take 2 cars to the event. This is badass. And so I want to do some of that with him, and then I want to spend my plan for SEMA this year, since I unfortunately don't get to go because I do love going to SEMA, is I'm gonna touch nothing but our 64 dart during SEMA week. I'm trying to line up a couple partners for just some key stuff right now for getting that 525 motor in it. I need the right transmission and stuff in there so I can set that motor where it goes, throw it back up on the chassis table for that week, and just maybe get all the undoing done I need to change the course of this thing to even more of a badass car. I've already got like the rear suspension is pretty keyed in, even though now I'd probably look to change it because we'll actually go race this thing. I want it to perform. Whereas before, my grandpa just wanted to drive it. So we made it badass, but badass, with boundaries.
So what I'm seeing,
So
you have a busy week planned.
yes.
So you're not on social media looking at all the SEMA coverage. It's like, oh man, I feel like I'm missing some. I know I'm leaving Thursday, and I've done that. This will be my 28th year or something like that, going to the SEMA show, 27th or something. And I've only went home short a few times through the years, and we didn't have a car there. I mean,
Yeah.
we used to get a new car. We had 12 new cars over the years. Then we'd also do a
Yeah.
hot run at the same time. And the years we didn't have a car and I didn't stay all week, I kicked myself because it's like, man, I didn't get to see this person. So now I'm already started my notes in my phone. I got to meet with this person, and you got to meet with your marketing people, your core people. I probably won't have a lot of time to meet new people, but I got to hit
Yeah.
my regulars, like you say, your Willwoods and my Miller people and the people that
Yep.
have helped get me to where you got to stop and say hi, at least shake Mike's hand, and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
Mike likes hugs though, doesn't he? He's a hugger. Mike at Willwood, yeah, he likes hugs.
Yeah.
And so after that, do we have another big project yet? Or are we still?
I've been purposefully. I've got a couple that have reached out with interest that aren't bad projects. They could be cool projects, but I just know that I'm kind of trying to not fill that slot, which is tough from a business standpoint because you want security. But I also know once I start showing the current 66, that could bring me an entirely different tier of client.
Yeah.
Because that's why I gave up. I've got a mountain of I call it equity hours in that one.
Mhm.
Stuff that the client didn't necessarily want. I didn't necessarily bill them for, but did because I know that if I want, I can build myself into that next bump up of builder just by do. Yeah, I mean that's all you have. You only have the last car you did to show as your resume. So I
Yeah,
want my resume to shine.
that is a very
And
fine line. You can put in some free time to make the job better to help get you
Mhm.
to that next client. But
Yeah,
early on in my career, because I was doing stuff really cheap, working at a dad's
yeah,
machine shed, and it seemed
yeah,
like then, like every time I ever gave something to somebody, it's like, I did this, or oh, I put a new trunk pan in it because it kind of needed it. And some of them people never appreciated that, and become kind of assholes about stuff.
Yeah.
But it is a different, I don't know how to explain this, and you don't understand.
It's a terrible business model. I'll tell you that. It's not good. It's not what you should do.
But it helps you get to that next person, and some of that
Yeah.
stuff and the struggles, and okay, I'm going to do this for free, or they just want a quick driver job, but I'm going to wet sand and polish this thing because I don't want to put stuff out like that. But then on the other side, once you get to a certain level, my one buddy says, man, this is so stressful making sure these gaps are exactly with a micrometer and all this stuff, and they're, all of the heads of the bolts are on. He goes, why don't you just do driver stuff and just, it's like, well, you, as the soul that we talked about, it's not rewarding, and you can't go back, because I did a truck once, probably. I talked about this on the Brian Brennan one, and it was like a 64 5 Chevy truck, and I built that thing to be a driver. I mean, it was flat black on the bottom, had a crate motor in it. Actually, my buddy, I think my cousin Lance built that motor. I got a used motor. Anyway, small block cart, old school, bias plies, white walls, and it ended up being cool enough. And I ended up selling it like before I even took it to an event. And Rob Fortier had me shoot it and write the article. And he, I didn't have what they were using for cameras, but I had a decent enough camera. He could do like a half-page picture of it and some black and whites. And he didn't want people to know that I wrote it, so I need to look it up, because he gave me like a ghost name of the photographer and the name.
I've done the same thing. One of my magazine articles I had to write. It's like, hey, I'll sign off on that and take their check for you.
Yeah. And I sold that thing. I mean, again, it was affordable. I mean, just truck, And I sold it for less than $20,000 back when those trucks were just starting. And this person that bought it, they're like, oh man, this isn't like your normal stuff. I seen your stuff at SEMA. I seen your stuff at Detroit Autorama. I go, dude, you bought an $18,000 truck. I was like, it's not a $300,000 vehicle. Well, I just thought it'd be a little bit. So you get that. I mean, he wasn't like totally mad. I'm like, well, what did you expect? He goes, oh yeah, I guess you're right. I didn't, yeah. So I texted me. She's texted me we need to wrap up. We've been going too long, so we don't want to just off on this, because we've been 2 hours now.
Feels like maybe an hour.
Yeah, right.
But anyways, that's my shameless plug that I will have a space open at some point if somebody wants in. But it's got to be something I'm passionate about. I had a guy, and I did this because I had a guy reach out that had a really cool he wanted me to build him a 240Z, which I've always wanted another crack at. And he wanted to do it my way. Awesome guy. He was an architect out of Florida. Still would love to build him a car. It's just I was so slammed. I was in the last 3 months of the 66 build, and it's like, dude, I can't take 2 days to sit down and actually give you the focus you deserve to give you a real plan.
When you're doing one of them crashes, you can't even hardly think ahead.
I have to finish the task at hand, and I had some family dying. I had lots of stuff going on, not good stuff, and it's like I'm just busy. I'm overwhelmed. Horrible time, but hang on, because you can have a spot way quicker than normal, but you just got to bear with me. And I think I just, took a little too long getting back to them, but I didn't want to make excuses. So I'm not going to just say, hey, I had this and this and this going. It's like, hey, in the future, if you ever want to come back, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to build you a car. But
so a couple more quick questions here. Okay. I lost that question. Oh, on one thing, you don't have to give any details. What car in your mind, I want to tackle one of these? You don't need to give me any details to, don't want anybody to steal an idea. It's like, I want to build another 55 Chevy. So is there
it doesn't, I'm not car specific. It can be it could be cars I like, 240Zs, F-body Camaros, anything sleek, anything in the muscle car area. It could even be a 55 Chevy. I like 55 Chevys, but a true tube chassis, badass, track capable road race type car. I look at like Dussold's Camaro and I just drool. I'm like, oh my God, that's freaking cool.
And you said or road rage Camaro. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just a sucker for that kind of thing. I just want to build something with a sequential transmission and
I'm surprised you coming from a tuner, and I don't know my tuner stuff, but there's a motor that sometimes show up on the autocross good guys that I announce Is it
Probably a 2JZ.
Those motors are incredible, and
they're badass. They're crazy badass, but they're heavy, and they're hard to pack. You'd have to throw it way back. My little brother does drifting, and they love their JZ motors for good reason. They're freaking. You can get like 800. Here's my dog finally, like 800 horsepower on stock bottom ends and stuff, and you can build them to like 1500 horsepower, like daily driver level. I would love to build a hot rod with one of those, like mid-mounted, pretty badass. I'd love that. Hey, Ollie, 5 minutes.
I'm not a big Mustang guy. That's my joke when I do all these announcement stuff. But the Tokyo Drift Fast and Furious, that Mustang was cool when they put that.
That was cool. That was cool.
Motor in it. And the guy that used to run Rocket Racing Wheels, he built an autocross car. He built a Datsun.
Yeah.
And he put one of those motors in it, and I always thought that'd be.
They even sound pretty badass. They make all the cool turbo sounds But yeah, no, I've built a couple turbo setups for him and stuff for my little brother, and I would be the dude to put one of those in a badass tube chassis car. But I just saw Dart came out with the blocks and stuff for him, so you could just start with an actual, not between like going full billet, stupid money, but build. I just have like a list of parts that I want to incorporate into a car. Like I want Motec, a 6XD transmission, like there's just some like key parts that would make the build badass, along with like a tube chassis that I would build. That's kind of my dream build.
There's a couple of these autocross guys, they're using, I forget what they're called, but it's electronic shifted BMW transmission.
So some of them are using the stupid DCT, which I will tell you do not use. I've done it now. But they're using 8 HPs.
His Camaro, that blue third gen. Yep. He has that in it, and he put one in his kid's third gen, and they've been running great.
Yep. So in a race car, you can get away with it, and they're probably using CAN TCU. I did not. I used the bad one that everybody has had bad luck with now, and I know too many horror stories, and I went through it myself. So we're going to go with the 8 HP. It's instead of a manual transmission that acts like an automatic, it's an automatic transmission that acts like a manual. Okay. So the shifting's almost as fast, but you kind of have that positive valve body feel instead of that like, hey, if your foot is on the brake, this thing has no drive. Like trying to get a DCT car on a trailer, or even with like an electronic clutch pedal. Dude, forget about it. It's not good. It's not what's advertised as far as I'm concerned.
So one other question. I go to a lot of these shops. I stopped by a guy's shop the other day, 15,000 square feet, bunch of guys. We've talked about you working pretty much by yourself. Your dad's helping you now. How big a shop do you have?
1,200 feet only because we closed in a side carport, and that's where I keep the machinery.
So that's what, a 3-stall garage?
It's a 3-stall garage. Yeah.
Okay.
It is the most organized space you'd ever run into, though. It's efficient. Like we fit it all in there good, and it's usable. And honestly, it's like say it's super efficient. I'm not having to walk here and here and here. Like if I'm fabricating something, it's like all in a short area, and everything's on wheels. So it's like, hey, I'm using these machines at this stage right now. These need to be close together. I'm not really bending tube or any of that, so that can stay over there.
Yeah, I have square feet. I'm very lucky now, but in Illinois, I had super small shop. It was total 3,200, but the one spot that I basically worked was like 2,300 or something like that. And I put everything on wheels. I still put everything on wheels. My iron worker is on heavy duty wheels so I can move. It's like dragging a car around, but everything's on wheels. And I've got that Rotex turret machine, and that thing's got to be 3,500 pounds of cast. But it's on wheels. They're not good wheels, so it takes some girth, but you can lug it around and stuff. I think that's something to say, because some people I know, they go in, they get these huge loans, they build these big crazy shops, and the older I get, I like to live simpler. I don't like loans. I don't like a big payment. I don't like that stuff. And when you work on hot rods, you kind of can do that. There's one of the guys I look up to the most is Scott Sullivan. He built the Cheese Whiz 55, and his shop is right out the back house. He bought his parents' house, goes out, walks outside, and goes to work every day. He does have another shop down the street with a buddy that has a few more fab equipment things, but everything is in like a 2.5 stall garage. And has built chassis on the floor and or put a chassis table in there, and he moves stuff outside and on wheels, and he builds some of the baddest cars in the industry, and doesn't have 3D printers and CNC machines and all that. I mean, he's got buddies that can do that for him.
Yeah.
But I just like that old school craftsmanship style of thing.
Yeah. I feel like I'm at a cool point where I can do everything I need to do with what I have. Everything else is a bonus from here on out. Not to say that I don't want I really want a Pullmax bad. They just don't ever come up for sale where I'm at, and I can't ship one across the country.
I finally got one last year.
I know you did. You were telling me at SEMA,
so it's a learning experience. I was working on it today. So I pester some of my buddies. I pester John Barefoot at Johnson's, and I pester Cody Walls at East Coast Channel Job all the time about stuff. And he's like, yeah, man, just, I go to people's shops, and I've used them a bunch of places, and I've used power hammers and stuff. And mostly all that stuff, I learned how to use most of that stuff being at Tucci's. He's like, yeah, just do this and this. And I got a lot of buddies. So as we get ready to wrap this up, so if we get too long, it'll shut off the recording. Is there anything else you'd like to add? You want to thank your dog? You want to thank your wife, or nothing like that? So
I definitely first and foremost want to thank my wife, because I put in there's periods that can last a year, 2 years, where I put in a lot of time at work because I love what I do, and I also love working. Like I'm a total workaholic, and she puts up with that, and she doesn't really give me that much grief about it either. So she's a keeper for that, but she does deserve attentive husband. So thank you, Sherry, for that.
So if you don't know, I had another buddy. I'm not going to throw him under the bus, but I did let his wife know. They recently had their first kid. He's almost a year old. And I was like, how's the baby life going? He goes, man, it takes up a lot more of my time than I thought it was going to. She goes, oh, he said that, did he? And he's like, yeah, you're always changing diapers and you got to make bottles. And it's like, you should have thought about this before you agreed to have a kid, man. You should.
Yeah. Yeah, and definitely thank my folks too. It's their shop I work out of. It's the same shop I've been building my BMX bikes in, and all the way through. And it's just always been open to me to use, and it's filled with my equipment and stuff. But it's
how far is home from the shop?
So it used to be 3 minutes, and now we just got 3 acres out in the country. So now it's only like 8 to 10 minutes. So it's nothing.
You have plans on your acreage there to build a shop?
That's why we bought acreage. Is someday this will be that dream of walking out your back door to build hot rods. I think that's everybody's dream. But someday that may be a reality. So and luckily I got my old man with me too now. So it's like the total plan from being a kid thinking of building hot rods. I literally get to go build hot rods with my dad every day.
So in Illinois, my shop was right out the back. We had 4 acres. In Illinois, it kind of sucked because anybody seen the lights on, they'd stop, because I grew up there and I knew all these people. Well, now our property is a half mile from anybody up on a hill and trees. We got 4 acres up here. Now that I don't really know local people, and it's really hard to see if I'm at the shop, I would love another shop in my back property. But I say, it's 2 miles to my shop, and I got 8,000 square feet. And
sometimes a little separation's okay too. But
so. Okay, so we're going to wrap this up before the recording.
And also thank you to you and Carrie for having me on, of course. This is an awesome opportunity. I definitely look up to you as a builder and a person in our industry, and you do a lot of really good things. So thank you so much.
So we got a list on my iPhone. Carrie taught me how to do this, and you were one of the first ones that I put. I was like, I definitely want to talk to this guy about being young, and I'm a fan. You've always been super rad. Your wife's super nice. I don't remember where I met your wife when we visited. Was it SEMA?
Definitely SEMA. She's a SEMA trooper.
Yeah. So
she'll sit there all day and watch me talk to people. And I'd say, hey, you can go you're in Vegas. Go sit by a pool, have fun. She chooses to sit there and play backup, and I really appreciate that.
So I've never met your dad, so hopefully in the future
next time I'll introduce you to Pops.
Yeah. So I want to thank Kyle Kuhnhausen for being on the Strange Motion Way podcast, and good luck with the baby.
Hey, thanks, man. Looking forward to the next. It was probably my best fabrication yet, so we'll see.
Yeah. Do you know what it is yet?
Oh yeah, it's a girl, Julia. We're having a girl.
Oh man, the gray hair is going to come.
It's already coming.
Okay, man. Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
The Strange Motion Way podcast, brought to you by Royal Purple Synthetic Oils.
Royal Purple premium synthetic motor oils and high-performance chemicals have been designed to improve performance in all conditions and provide cleaner operation, better mileage, and decreased oil change frequency. That means less oil changes. With products available for your gasoline and diesel engines, Royal Purple is the obvious choice for your performance needs. Drive with Royal Purple, the synthetic expert.